Show. Ni furaha kujiunga nanyi wapenzi wasikilizaji, tukiwa tumekuandalia taarifa za kusisimua, muziki wa kata viungo na kindumbwe cha siasa au politics ukipenda. We are streaming live from Facebook from Kilimanjaro Studios outside Washington, D.C. And we'll shortly be going live on YouTube, so please call all your YouTube friends to get started. And please remember to subscribe to both our YouTube and Facebook pages at The One Mic Show. And follow us on Instagram at One Mic Show. We are also now on TikTok, so please remember to follow us on TikTok too. We'll be taking live calls tonight at 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak, so please remember to save that number. I'm going to say it again. It is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Now, later tonight, we'll dive into the deals that President Ruto signed while on a recent state invitation to Biden's White House. With the changing dynamic of Biden stepping down in favor of Kamala Harris in the upcoming elections, what is the fate of the promises that Biden made to Kenya? Please start dropping your comments below and let us know what you think regarding this. Na bila kusahau, tunapokea mziki toka DJ wetu Bachachari mleta habari yule DJ Moshfire, na tutadunda kule viwanjani na Mika Ochi zake na Marisaba mgongoni akituletea habari za michezo moja kwa moja toka Kilimanjaro Studios. Mimi mtangazaji na mwana habari wako mpendwa Ali Badawi. Kwetu wananiita mteule na wengine mniite mjukuu wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui, na sibagui. Karibuni.
Now, let's talk politics.
Now, this hour we'll be talking about the dynamic shift following Kamala Harris's replacement of Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee for U.S. President. In studio to discuss this is our U.S. political and cultural contributor, Annette Karanja. She'll also talk about Project 2025 and how African immigrants will be impacted should Trump win in November. So please drop a comment and tell us where you're tuned in from. I know we have a lot of people from Texas. Let's find out if we have people from Maryland or any other parts of the U.S. or any part of the world. Please let us know. And I'm your co-host and producer Ali Badawi. It is Friday. What's the day today? It's Friday the 26th of July, and we are streaming live from Kilimanjaro Studios outside Washington, D.C. Now, please remember to follow The One Mic Show on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and now on TikTok. On panel with me is Mr. One Mic Kamakawa. Sports anchor Mika Och will be joining us via Zoom. Our resident DJ Moshfire is live on the decks tonight. He's already been roga-rogaing you. And also not forgetting that our super producer is none other than Mubelwa Bandio. I can see some people already out here in the building. Mosheke Ndirango kama kawaida, karibu sana. Welcome Mosheke all the way from Texas. I can see Shamis Al-Khatri is in the building. Shamis, karibu sana. I can see Jams Karis is also tuned in. Habo Kubu pale na enjoy mziki tayari. Thank you so much. And Washeke is claiming she is tuned from Lisbon. So I don't know whether this is Lisbon, San Antonio, Texas, or if it's Lisbon, Portugal, or I don't know what Lisbon this is. Maybe Washeke, you want to confirm that for us?
Kubika Nyambora.
Yes. And then Washeke, also remind us, we had a protest at the IMF last week. There was a pact that we had that whoever did not attend was supposed to pay some money. So Washeke, please remind us how much that money was, so that we can reveal later on in the show who attended and who did not attend those protests and who will be paying the money. So thank you so much for those who already tuned in. So drop in the comments and let us know where you're tuned in from. Now we're going to get started right away because we have a lot to cover tonight. And as you already know, that the last 2 weeks has been quite ground shifting in the 2024 White House race. Now, former President Trump narrowly escaped an assassin's bullet. Then Joe Biden got replaced on top of the Democratic Party ticket by her Vice President Kamala Harris. Back home in Kenya, we almost had a revolution after endless protests against the government. We know that the opposition coalition led by Raila Odinga has now unfortunately sided with the government against protesting Kenyans who've been killed. We'll try to find out if the protests have dented President William Ruto's carefully crafted image abroad. We'll also be asking if the deals he signed with President Biden are at risk following the dynamic shift in the White House race as is right now. And tonight, we are privileged to host U.S. politics and culture contributor Miss Annette Karanja. Now, Annette is a second-generation Kenyan raised in Baltimore, Maryland. She's a political activist who focuses on social justice, economic, and political rights for immigrants. Now, last year, Annette was appointed by Baltimore County Mayor and now candidate for U.S. Congress Johnny O to the New American Task Force. She's also a recipient. She also received a public service award from her local chapter of the Democratic Party in Baltimore County. Now, Annette has a passion in political mobilization and assisting Kenyans access government services. She's here today to talk about the changing dynamic of the U.S. presidential race and how it may impact U.S.-Kenyan relations. With the stepping aside of Joe Biden and the rise of VP Kamala Harris to the top of the Democratic ticket, Annette will highlight the effect of Kamala's surprise candidacy on the upcoming November presidential elections. Annette, welcome back to the One Mic Show. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
All right, all right. Yes, it's great. Now, you've been here so many times. I've even lost count. You were here back in May during primary season when Angela Alsobrooks was vying for the Democratic Party ticket for the Maryland U.S. Senate seat. What have you been up to since then, Annette?
There has been so much.
Okay.
First, I want to say that Senate race was a nail biter. That was we were on a ride for that one, but that race continues because we still have November, and Larry Hogan is the Republican running against Angela Alsobrooks, and so that's going to be a tough one to contend. And so since then, there has been some mobilizing, just trying to figure out and outline what it is that we want as a party to do moving forward for this election. I'm a very local person. All politics are local. You got to start there. There's been some movements within my district to do some redistricting and to get some new voters, which is really significant now with the shift that has happened, because we know that new voters tend to impact the numbers for Democrats and independents more significantly than it does for Republicans. And so we've gotten some very strong numbers for new voters since Biden decided not to run for re-election. And so that has mobilized so many people. This past week, there have been lots of calls going on. There were 44,000 black women on a call that happened that same night. It was a scramble to get on that call. We got to capacity so quickly multiple times until all 44,000 of us were able to be on that call. I was proud to be on that call. And I'm very proud of that call because it was grassroots. There was no advertising. You knew somebody. You were part of the community. And that really is a good way to lead for, moving forward. And then other groups did the same. Now, that doesn't mean that things have been solidified as far as what the specifics that we want to talk about. Like, we want to hear what Kamala is going to say about the issues that are pressing citizens today, of course. But when you have a shift like that, you want to make sure that you get on board from the beginning, just so that you can be part of the group that is progressing the country forward.
Okay, very interesting, very interesting. And I also want to welcome the rest of the panel. We're going to get to Mika shortly, who's on Zoom. I'm going to get started right here in the studio with DJ Omosh Fire, who's been rogaing us. Omosh, how has your week been? Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Welcome to the show, Annette. Good to see you. I'm seeing, maybe you should have come with a t-shirt that says I survived Joe Biden. The week has been interesting. I would venture to say that the whole month, or should I say, going back a month, 4 weeks, there's so much that has happened politically that affects us here and affects us at home, that at a certain point, it's like it's become part and parcel of your day to day. So you even forget that and then somewhere around there, Olympics snacking. So you're like, okay, Olympics, Kenya news, politics, sijui tunapangwa, sijui a shot in the ear, a ear that was not shot. It's all sorts of different things. And then you're like, oh, I need to pay mortgage. Dang. And I have to work. So you have to just, at a certain point, this is that point where Joanna Pott says your mental health, blah 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 blah, and then you're given the spiel. This is that part because there's so much that is going on, and whatever is going to happen here domestically is also going to affect us in Kenya in different ways. Meaning, it affects us with policies. It also affects us with how we ourselves as immigrants in this country are living, because 45, when he had a first opportunity, the first order of business was immigrants and how I can screw them.
Yes, and Muslims, don't forget us. It was both immigrants and Muslims. I guess
he started with Muslims, and then it was like, oh, you're a Muslim who's an immigrant.
Then he expanded it.
Yes. And so, you know, it's one of those things that you sit down and you're like, okay, man, you really, really have to look at this thing, big picture. And it's been a heck of a week. And then Uncle Joe alicheza kama yeye.
Alicheza kama yeye. Okay,
What?
asante sana Omosh Fire. We're going to come to Mika, who's on Zoom, but before we go to Mika, I think we need to come to Uno Mike, who's in studio. Uno Mike, how has your week been? How have you been keeping up mentally with all these dynamic shifts, both in Kenya and in the US?
Oh, and don't forget you have Relas in sorry,
I have Relas where?
in Baltimore.
Okay, that's fine. Anyway, it was quite interesting. So, I was one of those people who was really, really conflicted. I really did not want Papa Joe to step down because I knew that that was the best chance.
Shot.
The best shot
For Democrats.
for Democrats. You
Yeah.
know, remember, because in 2020, everyone else stood. Everyone that wanted to vie,
Yes.
na wakashindwa.
Mm-hmm.
He emerged as the winner.
Yes.
Now, talking to a few guys, the intention was to run for 1 year. For one
For
term.
one term, yeah.
But then I think somewhere something happened, whatever. You know, probably in the back somewhere, nyuma ya tent, Nasi Maldives, we'll probably find out what his thinking was for him to want to run again. We're not really sure. There was a lot of hype around Gavin Awesome. Him, because I think that's
Who is Gavin Awesome?
Gavin Awesome is the California governor.
Oh, okay.
Thank
you
you.
mean Governor Newsom?
That one.
Okay, I
I
didn't know
call
who
him
Gavin-
Awesome.
I
I call
didn't
him
know who Gavin Awesome
Gavin
is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You like that, don't
Okay.
you? So anyway, that I thought, but you know, then I
Yeah.
learned that you cannot get somebody from the same state. But I think the assumption was if he's going to run, then Kamala has to drop. Anyway, there was a lot of hoopla going on. There was a lot of news in terms of that. You know what, Kamala? People want to if Kamala is dropped, you know that there goes the, you know, in other words, Orange Orangutan is going to come back. But it looks like, you know what? It's a good thing, man. It's a good thing.
Okay.
See,
You
homeboy.
started feeling it?
No.
Yeah.
I felt it because
Okay.
I was concerned because I know it's politics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, feelings is one thing.
Yeah.
Reality and politics and it being a contact sport,
Mm-hmm.
there are very many pieces that have to be put together.
Have to align.
They have to align.
Yeah.
That's just facts. But it looks like the way guys are gunnering up, they're gathering,
Rallying.
they're rallying. They're not even falling in love. They're not only falling in love, they are falling in line. Like there is thugly clans that they do. Them, it doesn't matter what he said. So now Homeboy has pulled out of a debate. And then on top of that, so I'm dealing with that. And then on this side, I'm thinking, you know, Mandamano, kaende, 2020. And then Baba just yanks the damn rag.
He does
and
his
does.
thing. He does his thing.
Alicheza kama yeye.
Okay.
He does his thing, which has just in chess, see, checkmate is just check.
Yeah.
Ni check too.
Ni check.
Ni check.
Okay.
2027.
However, there's still some moves
There
that
are
can be.
there are still moves that can be made right
Okay.
now.
And
That
tho-
one I believe.
And those moves can be dirty.
Okay.
Ni sawa tu.
Jesus
sawa.
moves can
Lakini
be
they are
dirty.
moves.
We're going to get to that conversation later on.
Yes.
Let me welcome Mika. Mika Och, how has your week been? How have you been dealing with all these shifting dynamics, both in the US and in Kenya? Mika, twende kazi.
Na ametuliza kwanza.
Mika
Amepoa.
alihama.
Alihama. Okay.
Alihama.
Nilihama nikaenda.
Dynamic shift.
Wewe ni
Kenya,
Omosh.
achana na Omosh. Dynamic shift. Kenya, US. How have you been dealing with it, Mika, before we get back to Annette in studio?
Mika kona jet lag.
Well, for the Kenyans, niko na jet lag ya kwenda wapi? Boss, mimi sijaenda kupoa bahasha Atlanta. Relax.
Wow. The violence.
Yaani umeona vile Mika
Aya,
amekuja
Mika, twende.
gloves
Mika,
off.
twende.
For the Kenyan one, I'd already accepted it last week. There was nowhere that the moment that Baba had given his statement last week about what he was going to say, I didn't expect any different. I knew that he was going to do that. I knew that the rumors don't just come from nowhere. So for Kenya, I was expecting it. I knew that Baba had already done what he was going to do, and there was no coming back from that. Now for the American one, I started kind of accepting it, especially when Papa Joe said that he was sick with COVID, I started seeing it. But then also the thing that I'm like one Mike, I wasn't there for him stepping down, because the call for stepping down was coming from Republicans more than him, right? And Republicans knew that the only reason that Republicans wanted Joe Biden to step down is that they believe that the Democratic Republic is gonna the Democratic Party is gonna start scrambling and try to start looking for who's going to be the best representative. And while they're still fighting within themselves to come up with somebody who's going to be their nominee, Trump will have made headway. He will have a lot of people to attack, and they would have gone. Another thing is that they did not expect that the vice president is going to get a lot of endorsements the way they did, because if you look at how their policies are based on what they're running on, their policies are anti-immigration, anti-Muslim, but majority of them is anti-women, right? We can see the moves they've made in the Supreme Court with the people who they put there based on women health and women representation. And basically, the campaigns are run by hate. So for Biden, it was on his health, on how he is, and trying to put malice and lies about his inclusivity and everything else that was there. So it was, when I saw that he had stepped down and he endorsed Kamala, he didn't even hesitate. Then I was like, okay, let's see. But then within 2 hours, a lot of the Democratic Party had endorsed Kamala Harris, and I was like, okay. By the end of the night, we saw how many people moved to her side. We saw how much money was raised, and it was a shocker even for the Republicans. They were not ready for that. It left them without anything to say. And what do you go usually? Even a jilted lover, akiachwa kitu anaendanga ni kusema nini? Ule alikuwaga tu puro nigadiri. So they tried to go after her in her time, like, okay, she's black, she's young, she likes dancing, she likes doing stuff. They started calling her, they started saying how she used other means on climbing a political ladder, trying to malign, but it was not going to happen, and it's not happening right now. So actually, for me, I think that step down was a very good thing that happened, and I want to thank the president for not only stepping down, nominating her, and ensuring while he's stepping down, negotiating a strong hand for her to be able to climb for a strong hand in terms of conditions of her, of him dropping out and giving a platform whereby she can catapult her candidacy. And man, you see the euphoria. Like the euphoria is nearly like that of Obama, but I think it's actually more.
Okay, Mika, sawa asante sana. So clearly there's excitement even within the Kilimanjaro family here with Kamala Harris running. So for me it's
same
been
question
interesting
to you, sir.
Yeah, so for me it's been interesting. So same question about Kenya or on
both,
this? Yeah.
Because you asked us all the same thing.
Okay, all right.
No, hold on. So Ali, how was your week? How are you doing? What do you think about how is
your mental state of declaration? And now that you had a protest and you are leading it,
relax.
Sorry.
Am I not the one who's asking the questions?
Relax. You can also be asked the question.
All right.
Yeah, you can't moderate without need tolerance.
Yeah, so there were so many things happening. We, of course, had a very successful protest from the IMF last week. We had quite a number of Kenyans. Over 100 Kenyans showed up. People drove all the way from Pennsylvania just to come for this protest. And we're in the process of where we're trying to figure out, where are we going to move the needle from here with what's happening in Kenya in a way that we have an advantage based on where we are located here in Washington, D.C. A lot of these international organizations like the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, a lot of human rights organizations. So we're trying to figure out how we can push the needle to also try and dent President Ruto's image abroad, which he's very carefully crafted. You remember that he came for a state visit a couple of months ago. So, and we were covered a lot by by Kenyan media, and then some random DC media house showed up, for the protest. We didn't even know who they were, but they heard about the protest. They came and covered it. So there was that, and then of course there was the
And we
sadness.
had Haitians too.
And we had Haitians too.
Yeah.
Yes, we had Haitians. We had some Ethiopians. We had
Yes.
Americans who came there.
Yeah.
There were people from multiple places. Asante sana Omosh for coming through. Of course, Mika had already excused himself. Mike was missing in action, so Washeke start doing that calculation of how much fine he's supposed to be paying and where the payment will be going. So that's what was happening. And of course, in Kenya, it was very sad what happened. We've seen now we have another handshake government, or what they're calling a government of national unity, whereby it seems like the Gen Z revolution has kind of been hijacked by the Azimio coalition. Even the Azimio coalition no longer exists, but Raila Odinga is trying to play.
It exists on paper.
It exists on paper, and Raila Odinga is trying to play both sides. He's trying to eat his cake and have it by saying, no, we are in there, no, we are not in there, they're there on the individual capacity. So there was that part. Then there was, of course, the part where President Biden stepped down. My oh my, this was such a big relief for our Muslim community. And I say this because we were in that position where, of course, we cannot vote for him based on what has happened in Gaza, but then we are staring at a Donald Trump presidency. So there was actually no, I mean, it would be easier to say that we were conflicted, but there was no conflict. 39,000 people, it was just very difficult to go back and sell Biden, after presiding over genocide with 39,000 people lost. It was, like now on a theological aspect, because when you're convincing, the community in a mosque or in a place of worship, you have to give reasoning why you're doing it. And with 39,000 people in a very short span of time, it was very difficult to do it. So that's a fight that even those of us who are deep in the Democratic Party, we just decided that we are going to let it go. It is what it is, and we'll wait to find out what happens. But now, God had a plan for us. God took away Biden. So that heavy load is lifted off our shoulder. And I've been, trying to keep my ear down on what people across the community are saying. And the general talk from the limited scope that I have is that she's a new candidate. Let's hear what she's going to say about Gaza. I mean, and of course, she already started talking. We know that Netanyahu was in D.C. earlier this week.
So of Gaza.
Yeah, so there's already a few comments coming in, but we really want to get a robust response from her on what her position is on the Palestinian issue. And I think this will be a big determining factor. But I'm seeing good signs that people are saying, let's give her a chance. Let's hear what she has to say. If she comes back with that ironclad story of Israel, then again, we are not going to vote for her. But so far, I think things are looking okay.
But let me ask you.
Sure.
Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
As a community,
Yes.
are you honestly expecting a U.S. president to say that they're going to shun Israel?
They're going to do what?
Shun Israel completely and like that.
No. The issue with Biden is not about shunning or not shunning Israel, because we've voted for so many other presidents who are pro-Israel. The issue with Biden is that he has blood on his hands. Because when it comes theologically, Kiislamu, we never convict people for crimes that they've never committed or we think they'll commit. With Biden, he has blood on his hands. And that was the most difficult part. I know normal logic will say, but Trump could have done worse. But the problem is we have someone with blood in his hands. And I think that's the most difficult part for people who are outside the community. Those of us inside, we understand. This is someone who has blood on his hands. We are not voting for him. That's that. So now the good thing, he's out of the way. We have Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris, I mean, of course, she's not. She's the vice president, but we just want to hear her position on the issue of Gaza, because this is so salient to the community. It is so sensitive, and I hope she has advisors who will tell her the right things to say. Because Michigan, I was so worried about Michigan. Michigan is a very critical state. If Kamala is to win, I think Michigan is one of those states that she must win. That blue wall of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, very, very important, because the other battleground states are kind of leaning Republican right now. We're talking of Georgia, we're talking of Nevada, we're talking of Arizona, and we're talking of North Carolina. They're kind of leaning Republican. I mean, of course, we've not
Does
seen
Virginia
new polls.
play into that a little bit?
Virginia is still on the Democratic side. I would say it's still leaning Democrat. You know, Northern Virginia, you know, like Richmond going north, the population is too big to tilt Virginia, but it's still a state to watch. But anyway, let's come back to the studio. But before that, a couple of comments have been coming in here. Before I forget, Washeke insists she's in Lisbon, Portugal. Washeke will only believe if you show us pictures. Luis Muya, karibu sana. I can see Stephen JJ is in the building. And Evans Marube anasema leo mnachokora show. Washeke pia anasema violence on the show. And then I can see Ashley Maingi, Maura Muroki, Adhiambo Odak, Lona Kamau, Sleo Dwar, karibuni sana ndani ya One Mic Show. Now Washeke says the coalescing around Kamala has been amazing. People putting their money where their mouth is. And then Evan says Kamala is young, woman, likable, and a seasoned attorney. Bwana America is built with immigrants. Blacks, women, and Indians are on board. Harris Atabeba, America of 2024 and the America of the 70s. So asante sana. And before we go back to Annette, I want to say, you know, I was also shocked at the speed and precision at which Biden stepped down, immediately endorsed Kamala, and all these other establishment Democrats started endorsing. It happened with so much speed and precision, you know, because I was worried. What happens after Biden steps down? What if there are people here who are going to say, no, we don't want Kamala, we want this other candidate, we want this other candidate? I was a bit worried about that, but I started seeing on Twitter, and it was on a Sunday. They did it so precisely. They did it on a slow news day to make sure that that's going to be the only item on the news. By the time dissenters are waking up on Monday morning, everybody's in line, and it's too late to say that, oh, I want what did you call him? Gavin who?
Gavin Awesome.
Yeah. So by the time
That
Gavin Awesome were waking up, everybody had been in line. But now, Annette, prior to President Biden stepping down, the party establishment had been insisting that he will not step aside. That was a talk, you know, before he announced that he's stepping down, even just a couple of days before. Now, what is it that forced a change in tact in a way that was so swift and decisive? Or maybe was it secretly known within the party establishment maybe weeks ago, months ago, that they're going to ask him to step down?
I don't think it was a secret. There has been talks, you know, especially after the debate. That is when a lot of the doubt conversations came up. Even as the debate was going on, he needs to step down. This is coming from people within the party who have influence. And so that was not necessarily a secret. Now, Biden himself kept reiterating, he's not going to step down. I'm not going to step down. He kept saying that. He said, you know, I might talk a little slow. You know, I might not be as young as I used to, but I definitely have a handle on these things. And he was very confident. Now, the thing is, you can't just will your way into a presidency, although some may try. You have to have the funding. You have to have the support of the party. You have to have key individuals backing you up. And that's what started really changing and shifting things for Biden. So while for some of you, Sunday's announcement may have come as a shock, some of us knew that the announcement was coming. So we were told that we're going to hear from the White House at around this time on a Sunday.
Insiders.
I wouldn't say insiders, but insiders.
It's okay. Yeah.
So we knew that an announcement was coming, you know, and for press purposes, these are things that people are told, given a little bit of an advance notice so that you can prepare accordingly. I remember making the mental note, okay, on Sunday there's going to be an announcement. This is going to clear things up. I think I had my assumption of what the announcement was going to be. So when the announcement happened, I was on the phone with a friend of mine and scrolling and multitasking as women do. And I saw it and the conversation stopped. You know, I was like, oh my goodness, I knew an announcement was coming.
What is the assumption? What is the assumption?
So I was assuming that there was going to be a talk about the unification of the party, like, you know, we've come together and we need to rally right now and something along those lines. I didn't see him stepping down. In hindsight, I think that was a little bit, maybe a little bit naive in that looking at how often this was floated out there, because it's like a litmus test when you make the statement like maybe he should step down, and then somebody else says it and somebody else says it, like they were getting a feel for it. And then of course probably the most significant factor was the polling. There was a lot of polling going out, Trump versus Biden, Kamala versus Biden, Kamala versus Joe, other players versus Biden. And so that really was it. You don't poll for no reason. Polling actually takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of effort, a lot of coordination. So if you're going to be doing a poll, it has to be for a reason. And so that really was the indicator that I guess I chose not to see at the time. And now in hindsight, I'm like, okay, all the signs were there. Now we have it. I think the more surprising thing was just the emphatic endorsement of Kamala Harris, not because she's undeserving, but because I'm sure there are others who felt like this was an opportunity for them, and so the moment he gave that endorsement, it put the Democratic Party on notice, and that party had to react.
Now, going back a little bit, before going back to the other people who had maybe seen that as an opportunity, but going back a week before, where were you when you got the news on the assassination attempt of Trump, and what ran through your mind at that moment?
It was like
because things happened
week
so
prior,
fast.
right? Like exactly like a week prior.
Yeah, it was exactly the same day. I think it was a Sunday.
Yeah, so a rally on a Sunday.
You talking about shrapnel that he's?
That's the current.
That's the current theory.
But it was an assassination attempt.
Yeah.
So this was the day that I chose to unplug, and I was I had come back from vacation out of town, and I was enjoying my vacation time, and I came back and I was like, wow, I put my phone off for 24 hours and so much has happened. The world is ending. I mean, not quite, but it felt like I had been so far behind. I still suggest that you unplug it from time to time. Yes, news is going to happen very fast, and you might miss that if you're not a journalist.
Especially on Sundays at this rate.
Sundays are no longer rest days.
No, it's not a fun day anymore.
I mean, Wolf Blitzer was having brunch and enjoying his Sunday.
I was wondering, what is Wolf Blitzer doing on TV on a Sunday? I'm like,
he got the call. We need you immediately. And
the car is right outside. That's what they told him. The car is right outside.
Happening now.
He had just posted his, the drink that's named after him at a brunch spot, enjoying his brunch, and then he was in the office. And that's why they keep a change of clothes at work, because
behind the door. Yeah, he probably had
in case something happens like that, And so that was, the response was quick, the talk was quick. The thing that I find interesting, and so to our listeners who watch Fox News religiously, please tell me what was that they were doing on Sunday after the announcement, because I would not say that is my best, that's their best journalism. They talked about Kamala. I think they had like a very long montage of her laughing and saying that she laughs funny. It was not the best moment in journalism.
I think what happened there is that it caught them by a surprise. And for them, the expectation was that if Joe Biden stands down, like if Joe Biden pulls out, there's going to be a scramble for the ticket. And in that scramble for the ticket, they were going to look for a thing. So they and I believe they are not up to now prepared on facing that Harris candidacy.
The only reason why
at that point they had to scramble up. At that reason, I think they just had to scramble up and start to look for. When you campaign, when you go against somebody, let's say if I have a problem with you and I don't know much about you, but I want to talk shit about you, and all that is leading me is hate, I'm going to look for the smallest thing that I can try to amplify and paint you badly, but it's not facts about you, so I don't have anything to talk about you. So the little thing that is right there, that is small, that I can readily, easily available get it, because let's be honest, that Friday, a lot of bad things were said about the vice president, right? They called us a sorority girl. they said that she hoard away up party politics, up her career and up party politics. They try to bring up the issues of the people she incarcerated. And the good thing that I like about the internet these days is you can beat everything with facts. And I like the way the democratic bloggers and just people in the internet really corrected a lot of that propaganda right before it took root. We know that the conservatives invested a lot in Elon Musk and buying Twitter so that they could use it to push their propaganda. And you know, when the Gen Z thing was happening and Kenyans were doing something called Aura for Aura, right? You post a lie, we post something, and like we are going toe to toe. There's no behaving here. I'm glad that the Democrats did that because it dispelled a lot of misinformation from spreading around. And you could see a news station like Fox News, which really, when most of the reporting is based on agenda based, when they haven't created that agenda, they were lost, completely lost. They even tried to make Biden's stepping down illegal while they're the ones who are calling for it.
Okay, so Mika. Annette.
So the thing that I just don't the criticism that I have for that though is that Fox News did publicize when JD Vance said that he was not going to go and do a toe-to-toe with Vice President Kamala Harris because, and he said Biden is going to step down and she might not be the VP pick anymore, you know, and it insinuated that she's actually running for president, and so it wouldn't be fair for a vice president nominee to then go against a president nominee. That's not how things works. So if Fox News is reporting that, I would think that that's an indication that you should have something, you know, planned just in case it happens, even if. But you know what? Maybe because the Republican Party has made it part of their party platform to use a lot of lies and do a lot of tricks, maybe they just said it to throw it out there and they didn't actually have something prepared for that. That is also a narrative that's possible. And we can see that historically as far as like them throwing out an idea that may not be based in fact.
Yes.
But this one, they were spot on.
They were spot on.
And so they should have been prepared.
Yeah, when you aim and you hope it doesn't hit, but it unfortunately hits.
Yeah.
Now, but before, you know, like before Biden stepped down, you know, like back again to the Trump assassination attempt, did you think at that point was it running in your mind that this is it? You know, like now there's no chance that Biden has of defeating Donald Trump.
Yes.
Because he just became they were already kind of like canonizing him like to almost a saint, and then now he's here, he survived an assassination attempt.
Here in America, imagery is so important, and whether I like Trump or not, that imagery of him, that picture that we saw of him with his fist up, with him bleeding, like blood on his face coming from his ear, you know, the people around him clearly in a chaotic, with the flag in the background in a chaotic scene. That is a powerful picture. Somebody is getting an award, okay, for taking that particular photo come award seasons. And because imagery is so important, at that point, what is the comparative photo that we have for the other side? And Biden doesn't really have that. You know, the last thing that we have in our memories for him was that debate, and that was not a very strong, honestly, it wasn't strong for either side, but the media really, really picked on Biden specifically on the things that he messed up on.
But do you think the decision to have Biden step down, was it kind of made after the debate, or did this assassination attempt, you know, like kind of like finalize, like we really now need to get him out, or was this just happenstance?
I would say that those who were vying to make some sort of upward movement probably was thinking about this prior to the debate. I would say that the visceral of it came after the debate. The assassination attempt on former President Trump's life definitely solidified it, but the talks were there beforehand. And it was very clearly seen. Social media, the press was talking about it. You know, when the minority leader is making similar statements, that is quite concerning, because that's a huge leader in the party. And so that definitely started before this particular attempt.
Okay. And then before we go to Kamala, now that President Biden no longer has the burden of worrying about being reelected, what are maybe 2 or 3 things, Annette, you might think he must do to secure his legacy as a great American president? Annette.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I think let's start with what outgoing presidents always do. Like the easier thing to talk about is, there's an opportunity to do some pardons. This is a lot of times we see pardons around this time. We'll see, the last month leading up to January, we'll see some executive orders, kind of our like last moment. What those last moment things would be for him, I'm not sure, only because he's had so much pushback on his initiatives. So when we're talking about erasing student loan debt, that was his big party thing that he wanted to do for the American people. That and the infrastructure bill, which has actually really, really benefited many of the states that their leadership had voted against it. And so it's kind of hard to answer that question because he has had so much litigation on anything that he has tried to do for his legacy and for the American people. So I'm not sure. I think this would be a moment for like a wish list. Like if you could get a letter to Biden, or if you could get in the room with him, what would your wish list be for him? This is probably going to be that moment. So if he has any favors out there, this might be the moment that people are calling them in. I don't have a specific thing. What do you think you would want to see?
I know Alice.
You know Alice?
And it has to do with Benjamin, that ugly man,
Okay.
Netanyahu.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
That one.
Okay. Now, with like this issue, and I know it's very difficult for people to understand why this issue is so important to us, with 39,000 lives involved. Like we are also here wondering, why is this issue not so important to other people? So I think, ceasefire at this point, Israel has been doing what they've been doing for such a long time. So even if he gets a ceasefire, he'll still be remembered for being,
Genocide Joe.
For being Genocide Joe. Unfortunately, in the community, that's how he's going to be remembered. Unless he can quickly reach a deal to have something like maybe like a 2-state solution before the next president is sworn in, which I think is a very difficult process given the short time that we have and how complicated these processes are. I think that's the only thing that maybe might redeem him a bit with the community. But I think he'll forever go down as that guy who had the opportunity to stop a genocide of 39,000 people and wasn't able to do that. The unfortunate part is that he's done so many other great things.
Yes, he has a really
that.
good track record.
He has a good track record on the economy,
Yes.
on so many other things. But with this one thing that is so salient, human life, over 39,000, and nothing was done about it. That right there, to me, will unfortunately be what Joe Biden, especially within the Muslim community. I mean, it's small in the U.S., but that's what he will be remembered for. And on top of that, I think this would be Kamala's chance to shine. Because I want to believe the worst of this Gaza conflict is over. With Netanyahu, you can't predict. But I want to believe the worst of it is over. So I think this will be her golden opportunity, just like the way Biden ended the war in Afghanistan, although it wasn't quite a smooth ending. These things usually never have very clean-cut, smooth endings. I think this would be Kamala's chance to be that person who was able to strike a solution that will maybe bring lasting peace in the region. Very difficult, but that's where that's where, unfortunately, where our mind is as people in the Muslim community, unfortunately.
I think this is a very challenging subject to discuss because of everything that you said and the experience and what the community is feeling is valid. When it comes to making statements about it now, like we haven't even had a week of her being the presumed nominee. And let's remember that she's actually not the official nominee. That doesn't happen until the DNC officially makes her the person on the ticket. And so right now, the focus is going to be on continuing to garner support and getting the momentum until the DNC, which happens in August, until that actually happens and she becomes the official ticket.
Okay.
In the meantime, though, there is pressure. There are conversations happening, and with this visit that just happened, there have been conversations that she has had with those who are expecting with it. Well, first off, let's talk about the family members of the hostages who have discussed, with them what they would like to see, and basically want to see our citizens home, right? Safely and as quickly as possible. And there is frustration amongst that group that this has taken so long, because there have been opportunities to have deals, and we know who it is that is refusing to allow this to happen.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right? And since we know that, this is an opportunity for the United States to put pressure. However, historically, the U.S. has not really done any type of legal maneuvers that would put pressure on Israel historically in the way that you would maybe they could. Like, they have options. They have the option of
because of Zionists.
They have the option of not sending weapons or withholding money. And Biden did do that, did pause arms being sent at one point in time for a brief period of time. But those are the type of things that they have now. With the UK, I don't know if you guys heard, the UK is saying that they will arrest him if he were to come on UK soil.
Yeah, with the new government.
They're going to cooperate. And that is a big
That's a big deal.
statement.
Yeah,
it
that's
is
a big
not
statement.
a small thing.
And this coming from the country that handed over Palestine to Israel.
Yes, and you know what happened is that there was a snap election.
That Balfour declaration.
Yeah, there was a snap election on July 4th where the Labour defeated the Conservatives, and most of the candidates, or rather, let me say, a lot of the candidates who won were pro-Palestine. So the public spoke, and right now, Netanyahu's belly is under fire. It's only America where he's getting these red carpets that we are seeing.
And so we're in new territory, too, because unlike the Republican Party, which has decided that they are completely and fully pro-Israel,
yes,
and that there's no if, ands, or buts about that, they have that solidified and there's no room for conversation about it. The Democratic Party now, with a new person as the possible head of the state, is going to be trying to grapple with what does it look like to be pro-Israel, and what does it look like to be pro-Palestine if we have a two-state solution. That's something that's going to be very tricky, because within the Democratic Party, there's not the same level of homogeny that the Republicans have. There are different sectors who have different opinions, and it's very possible that there's going to have to be a lot of conversations happening as to how to have both exist at the same time.
Okay. Now, a couple of comments were coming in here while we were having a conversation. Washeke said, I love how this was done after the Republican convention. The timing was jackpot. And then Stephen JJ says, on Biden's legacy, student loans. Udi Madhenge, karibu sana. I can see also Grizzly Proxy is tuned in. Brian Dab is tuned in. Karibuni sana. Then I have Evans Marube here saying, go preach the negativity of Trump. The more Trump scare immigrants, advocate for anti-women policies, and cage America against Mexican, Spanish, and talk of black jobs, low jobs. God is with us. And then I can see Ulrika Bernard and Ruth Kilungu are all in the building. Ulrika says, if there's one thing I want to tell Joe Biden, please make the George Floyd legislation law before you leave, so we don't ever have another Sonia Massey. And also forgive my student loans, please, please, please. DJ Moshe, I don't know that there's anyone saying anything on YouTube. Ama watu bado YouTube wanaingia.
YouTube hakuna comments.
Okay, Evan says the same Gen Z that run and dictate the show back in Kenya are the same age mates that are in the US. Kamala's 1 hour fundraiser record and endorsement from celebrities tells a lot. I want to remind the listeners that you're tuned in to The One Mic Show, and I'm your co-host and producer, Ali Badawi. We're here talking about the changing dynamics of the U.S. presidential race. And in studio tonight, we have our U.S. politics and culture contributor, Miss Annette Karanja. Now, Annette, of course, is a second-generation Kenyan raised in Baltimore, Maryland. She's a political activist and focuses on social justice, economic and political rights for immigrants. Annette is also a member of Baltimore County's New American Task Force and a recipient of a Public Service Award from her local chapter of the Democratic Party. We'll shortly be talking about what VP Kamala Harris must do to avoid Hillary's mistakes as a woman running for president against Trump. So stay tuned for that. Our lines are open. The number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. So feel free to call in. But before we continue, Annette, with all these things that are happening both in Kenya and the US, have you at least been watching Olympics, taking a break, like doing something outside politics?
She turned her phone off.
I turned it off one day and I regretted. So my phone has been on since then. I'm very excited about the Olympics. There's so many things going on. This is the first year that we have an Olympics where we have the same number of women athletes as male athletes. So,
oh wow!
Yes, this is the first one. Like,
come back in English, Selector Massive. You're saying that it's equal number.
I'm saying it's an equal number of athletes, which means that women's athletics is really it's booming around the world.
Was that done on purpose?
No, you have to qualify. Obviously, you have to. I mean, there are all of those steps, but this is the first year, and now you also have to have each individual country invest in their women's sports so that their people can qualify.
Oh, that's interesting.
So,
I did not even know, like there was something like how do you get to find out facts like that? Like I did not even know.
So the Olympics is its own government, and they have their governing body, and they do their statistics, and they do the statistics on, like who has the most amount of people coming, who doesn't, one country might have, I think, 306, athletes that are going for the Olympics that year. Another country might only have 10, or you might know, when you have a country breaking into a sport that's not typically done, let's say when someone from Jamaica does a winter sport, Winter Olympics.
Correct.
Like that, that is something that, gets on our radar. And it's the same way how it is for everything. I'm finding these things out on Instagram. I follow some of my favorite athletes on Instagram. I've been seeing them qualify. I've been watching the events happening leading up.
Name one favorite athlete.
There is a male gymnast.
Names.
His name is Frederick. Well, his handle is Frederick Flips. I don't know what his last name is. Pardon me. And I'm a fan of him. We watch him in my household. I'm also, of course,
why are you a fan of him?
I'm a fan of him because male gymnasts don't get as much attention. I'm a fan of him because he is a black male.
I was gonna say male black.
He's a black male
There's
gymnast.
a guy who was really good.
And so that's a break.
Time. I forget that guy's name. He was really good, a black guy. Dang.
It's so amazing to see, and so that's been very exciting to me because now, I love that the younger generation gets to see things that I didn't see growing up, right? So by the time I was going to when I was getting involved in watching the Olympics, it was usually all white women on the gymnastics team. Now we have a gymnastics team with 5 women, and 4 of them are women of color, and so that is very unique. So I'm excited about a lot of those different things. But the Olympics, it's not really a break. It's inherently political.
Yeah.
His name is Frederick Richards.
Yes, Richards.
Frederick Richard.
Now Frederick Richards.
I want to ask Omar something.
Yeah.
Omar, who are you calling long nails?
Ule Shakari, what's her name?
Shakari Richardson.
That one.
Okay, the 100 meters.
Let me say something here.
Say it.
That a lot of people really try to use to castigate that young lady, right? If there's one woman who, not even woman, one person in this world who I respect for them being themselves, it's her. She runs when she's glammed up. If she wants color on her hair, she has color on her hair. She has nails on her hair. She has lip gloss. She has makeup. She looks good and she runs good. That is confidence in yourself, something that so many athletes do not have. That is her strength. So when you call her long nails, unamsifu, enjoy, because
But
If you look at the
Do you
other
actually
athletes who
know
ran
the
on that.
backstory?
Sequel I'm enjoy. Me, to me, I was just.
No,
I don't know her name.
For her, I like
I didn't know it that time.
for her, no, for her, the way she does what she likes looking good, she likes feeling good, and she brings it onto the track. It is actually a very encouraging thing to young girls, because there's some young girls who feel that for you to participate in sport, you cannot be glad, you cannot be that girly girl the way you're supposed to be. She allows those young girls to dream like that. I can be girly girl and I can still participate in sports.
Okay, Annette, you're saying there's a backstory.
So there's a backstory to her nails.
Yeah.
Netflix has a docuseries that she's featured in.
It's been on by Q. I haven't watched
Sprint.
it.
You haven't
It's called
watched it.
Sprint.
You
It's
haven't
called
watched
Sprint,
to see
yeah.
your Kenyan buddy there.
I mean, Omanyala.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. It's on the
Is
queue.
it, it's
There's
got
so
like
many
7
things.
athletes in it?
Yes, it has.
Seven?
You know, the U.S., Jamaica. He's in there. The Italy guy who
What's
is.
the guy from? Is it Botswana?
Let's see, Letebogo.
I don't think he was.
And
I didn't watch
then
the whole
there's a South
series.
African, Akani Simbine.
Yeah, that Letsile guy.
No, the thing is, for the series, what they concentrated on, they were concentrating on this
Times.
The big names.
on the top athletes that were that performed in the previous year. So the thing
Okay.
Omanyala, remember, was the one with the
best
record
time.
from Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the World Series in France, his performance was typically one of the best. He was second, right, to Lyles.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah,
So
so they were
Sha'Carri-
concentrating on the top performance on how, and then also for Sha'Carri, that was a comeback. Remember, she
Yes,
had
yes, that
after
was a
missing the
comeback, yeah.
Olympics after having a very bad
Okay.
coming back to Nene. That was last year. She wiped the floor with everybody.
okay. You're saying, Annette, you're saying there's something about her.
So she
her nails.
she
Yeah.
talks about it. She does an interview and she talks about it. She talks about how intentional she is about her appearance. You know, there was a time when she took off her wig right before she ran, and she
remember
talks
that
about
one,
that
yes.
moment
Yeah.
and what that symbolized to her. It was a different chapter. That's the hair that she had before when things went awry for her, and she's taking it off was like a symbol of this being a new chapter
Things
for
are
her.
different now.
And so she also talked about her nails, and she said that her grandmother, who's very near and dear to her, had very long nails
yeah.
naturally. Like she had very long nails, and she took care of her very long nails. And so she doesn't naturally have very long nails, but she makes sure that she gets her nails done. And so that's just a tribute to her grandmother, which I think is really beautiful.
Okay, a couple of comments here. Udimadenge is saying Sha'Carri and Simone Biles. Washeke says Sha'Carri is authentic and so inspiring. She reminds black girls do not try to fit into the box that society tries to push us on. And then Udimadenge says let's other forget Flojo. That was I think back in the days. I
Yes,
think,
the flair.
I
yeah,
think
that,
maybe late 80s, early
when
90s.
Carl Lewis was 88.
Yeah.
Ugo, yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's get back now to more important business. Back to you, Annette. Now on Kamala's candidacy, we know it did not go through any competitive process.
Well, I just saw, as of 21 minutes ago,
Yeah.
she has officially signed the forms declaring her candidacy for the president of the United States.
But
This
look,
is not typical.
now, but the candidacy, of course, with all those endorsements that came in thick and fast right after Biden stepped down, there was no competitive process. So why was the party's establishment and President Biden so fast in moving to endorse her? You know, like, were they trying to prevent, you know, like other people from coming in? Because that speed was not usual, because stepping down to me is a very momentous announcement. It should have time on its own. But it was
Sure.
kind of like they were done together.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I think is that part of the question? Would that also be part of a question where that there's a process that should be followed, where you're supposed to have primaries, where she's supposed to compete, get into a ring, and then I book a machine.
So this is unprecedented
Because
this is the first time that a presidential candidate is withdrawing less than 4 months
Yes.
to the general election. Lyndon Johnson withdrew, but he withdrew in March.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
the
it
thing.
was
The
very early.
timeline is so significant.
Yeah.
And then we also have to understand that there are a lot of odd things that are happening in this particular particular
Because
election.
somebody told me about that the Constitution was not followed. I'm still waiting for an answer about the Constitution.
Where
where it's
What
supposed-
constitution was not followed? But
No,
that's
no,
the
no,
thing.
No. Let's
Let-
let Annette let Annette answer it,
Yes.
and then we'll figure out
Yes.
where.
So
But you know what I'm talking about.
everything here is very, very unprecedented. Okay, so and it's not just the Democratic side. It's so easy to focus on that because that's what's happening right now. That's what's happened in less than a week, right? So Sunday will be a week. But even on the Republican side, we had a presumed candidate, and yet they still went through their primary process. And that was interesting because now these people, it's like, okay, what is the motive here? You're vying for this position. But it's very unlikely, it seemed from all of the polling, that any of them were going to surpass, Trump. At one point in time, I thought, like, maybe these people are competing for the VP position. I don't know. And so that is very unique because Trump didn't actually compete. He didn't do any of the debates.
Yeah.
He didn't. I mean, the only time he addressed people was via Twitter. And that is just not a
Twitter or Truth Social.
But it was okay.
Truth Social.
So he didn't even do one debate, right?
No, he
Not
didn't do
even
any
one.
debate. Yeah, no, he didn't.
Nothing. He
Yeah.
did not engage with any of the people who were running against him. And so with that being the case, that is very odd. Is that really due process? Is that, so you could have the same question on the Republican side. Now, when it comes to what's happening with the Democrats, the truth of the matter is most of us don't actually know the nitty gritty of how these processes are done. It's not. We know what has historically happened. We know what traditionally happens, but there is some nuance there. And because even Biden was a presumed candidate for the ticket until he was officially put on the ballot by the DNC, right? So with that being the case, they both, I don't know. It's a fair assumption that the standing president, because that is what we've done historically, is going to be the nominee for the second term. But it doesn't always happen that way. And it doesn't have to happen that way. And so that's what we're seeing here. So we're seeing history unfold, and we're actually seeing the process happening the way that it was written out to happen. And because, the DNC hasn't happened, this can happen. Now, if it was after, it's not possible.
Now, to quickly interject, like when during the swearing in of Biden, when Trump did not to hand over, I did some reading, and that's when I came to learn that a lot of things that you see in America are not constitutional. They're not necessarily in law. It's just norms. Like, for example, a president being the presumptive, a sitting president being the presumptive nominee. It's not a rule. It's not a law. It's not constitution. It's a norm.
It's the norm.
And even when it comes to parties picking a presidential candidate, I don't think the Constitution even mentions political parties.
It doesn't.
It doesn't mention political parties. So it's a political party that it's at their discretion within their own rules on what they want to do. And the political parties can change their own rules in the middle of the game. And that's, I think, what people need to understand, because sometimes people like throwing this word constitution too much. The American Constitution, unlike the Kenyan one, is so thin. It's like, I think, only 4 pages.
It's very easy to read.
Yeah, it's a very easy read. It's like only 4 pages, and it's very loose. So a lot of these things are within, the norms of the party. And when you go back to Lyndon Johnson not wanting to run for re-election back, I think that was in the 68 election, the one that Nixon won, the Democrats went and had what's called an open convention, where the convention is supposed to be where the party delegates select who the candidate will be. And traditional, it's been that way. But over time, the conventions became just a coronation. We already know who the winner is. It's kind of like a coronation, like it's Hillary Clinton or it's X. But traditionally, and in 1968, they had a very ugly convention. And I think the guy who won was called, I think, George McGovern, and he lost to Richard Nixon. The other open convention was when President Carter was, after his first term, he was challenged by JFK's brother. Robert Kennedy. So I meant Bobby Kennedy. So that also became, it also became No, Ted Kennedy.
Ted.
Oh, my
Ted
bad.
is the name. Yeah, Ted is the name.
My
68,
bad.
yeah,
My
because
bad.
Bobby
Yeah,
68.
Ted Kennedy. Ted Kennedy challenged Jimmy Carter, and it ended up very ugly. And Reagan ended up winning the following election. So I think after those experiences, both parties became gun shy of having, you know, like an open convention, because things can turn very ugly. I know the Democrats have about 4,600 delegates, and they are what they call 700 super delegates, whereby the rules are, if, you know, like the 4,600 delegates will select who they want. If you get a majority, you become the candidate. If you do not get a majority, then the 700 super delegates are the ones who make a selection, and the super delegates are who's who in the party, the establishment people. So I think that's part of the reason why there's a bit of fear in taking it down to you know, like to, I think it's gonna be in Chicago this time, the
Yes.
Democratic Convention. So yeah, so anyway, maybe you can give us your take on that. That's just a bit of the reading I was doing on why they never want those open conventions, where, you know, like in Kenya we have people who are called men in black. I know you might not be familiar with that, but yeah, these are people who disrupt elections in a convention.
What
You know,
almost?
like if someone is not, if let's say like Annette is a candidate we want to win, and we realize the way things are going, she's not winning, there are these people who are planted strategically to disrupt everything, you know,
Okay.
throw down all the ballot boxes. So I don't know whether the Democrats have such people.
No, so
Yeah.
we are in a time where we have the information. We have polling. We have the numbers. We can see who is leaning what way. The delegates actually meet before the actual event. And so that's part of the support that we're seeing, is that different groups, state by state. So the state of Maryland, they had a call, and they were like, okay, whatever discussion happened, if you're going to be a delegate. And so in the state of Maryland, I remember I think the Senate delegates, the state Senate delegates were the first ones to release a statement of support. And so as that continued to happen, then you start tallying up and seeing, okay, so the numbers are there for her. So assuming, even if it was that open situation, the numbers are indicating that she would be the one who's selected.
Okay.
And nobody, and you know, there are not a lot of people who are waiting to see if there's another option, because they have declared. So that is a significant thing that we need to understand about how this party is operating currently. And when you are in a time crunch, nobody wants chaos. Excuse me.
Yeah, and actually here Ruth was saying there's no time. We only have approximately 100 days to the election.
Yes.
We cannot afford dividing the party with so little time.
Yes, that's true. So you want to have some sort of consensus, so that you can continue to have messaging that is going to be powerful and effective as far as reaching the masses, right? Because now, you know, the people who are the insiders, they have, that's step one. And then after that, rallying behind a candidate. And then step two would be to get it to all of those who are unreached. That's really the most important part. When we come to this situation, it's interesting and unique because not only was the endorsement first given by Biden, which was, you know, a signal for everyone to, you know, nod accordingly. The swiftness shows us not only the understanding of the urgency, but then also when you look at the statements, we're talking about a candidate who is highly qualified, who has worked in all of the different branches of government. We're talking about a person where if you were to say we don't like her as the nominee for the Democratic Party, what would the reasoning be? That's the question, you know? So anyone who is aspiring would have to say, I'm the better candidate compared to her because, and it's very hard to do that with a VP. We have a lot of presidents who previously were vice presidents.
Yes.
So with that precedence, it's a very difficult argument to make. And so I think that is a big reason why people are falling in line. I remember when the announcement was first made, I was seeing who was endorsing. The Clintons were pretty quick to endorse.
Yeah, Hillary was fast.
Hillary was
fast.
Yeah, she
very
did not waste
fast.
time.
The person who shocked me was the Obamises. They
So
took some
as
time.
of today,
Yeah, yeah, they took
As
some
of
time.
No. They took time.
yes, they took
no,
time.
I think it
as
was
of today,
suspense.
they,
Suspense.
Kuna suspense.
Suspense.
As of today,
Waliniangusha
they've
hapo.
Yeah.
and they kind of had the
when
nod.
Mike is putting the typical Kenyan nini, Kenyan tabia of everything has to be a conspiracy.
No, no,
I think within the party we were wondering.
Calculated moves.
no, I just said they take a bit too long, but carry on.
I think in the party we were wondering, like you look to see
Thank
so
you.
whoever your leadership is. So
Thank you.
if you're in California and you like Gavin Newsom, if you are somewhere else and you look to the people, some people who are not in New York look to AOC and see what she's saying. If you look to your leadership or the person that you admire or look up to for direction and they're not saying anything, then you wonder, like, okay, what's that about? Is there something going on? And so but that doesn't mean that there's a conspiracy. It just means that it's natural to wonder what people are going to do and when their endorsements are going to come. AOC did endorse fairly quickly. And so we do have the Obama's endorsement as well. And so this is going to be very interesting. It looks like, this is a sure thing. She's officially done her candidacy. There's a lot of, I guess, procedural things that are going to happen leading up to getting her officially. Right now, if you're reporting on her, she is the presumed candidate. But let's remember that even if we did have multiple candidates, like the same way the Republicans did up until this point, we still know that people tend to drop out when they realize that the numbers are not in their favor.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a natural progression of things. And so you let things play out as the way as they should. You have the debates if you're having the debates. Or you campaign however you do so. But slowly but surely people look at their numbers and they concede and they say they might not officially, which, there's some technicalities. They might not officially drop out, but they may make a statement of support for someone,
I'm suspending.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Never
Republicans did
understood
that
yeah.
recently. So they'll suspend their campaign and they'll, talk about how great their campaign was and say, we hope to see so and so, or maybe they'll say so and so, like, the Republicans might need to earn my endorsement by, doing X, Y, Z, whatever the statements.
Oh, like
be.
Nikki Haley?
Yeah. So
sorry.
yeah. So
No.
like either both sides
Yeah.
do this. This is not a Democrat thing or a Republican thing. This is just kind of.
And
how
actually,
it's gone.
Nikki Haley kind of predicted.
She
that-
did.
Yeah.
She
in
February.
specifically said.
I don't know that it was a Freudian slip or it was.
Oh, she said that
it
with
was,
her full chest. She
yes.
was very confident
In
when she
February.
said we are going
Yeah.
to have a woman president. She said
Yeah.
we are going to have a woman
It's
president,
either
and
me
it's
or
either going to
Kamala.
be me or Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And that was quite a poignant
wow.
statement. Another
yeah.
thing that was very interesting was that Ford previously being asked, I believe it was like a child asked, like, when are we going to have a female president? And even he said, I don't know if you guys have seen on social
I've seen that on
media,
clip. He said when
and
you
he
have.
even said you're going to have, someone's going to select a woman to be vice
Yes.
president,
Yes.
and
saw
he
that.
will die, and then she will become,
I think the person who was saying that was the late Gerald Ford.
Ford.
Yes,
It was
it was
Ford. I
him,
said that.
yes.
Yeah, Ford. So Ford made that statement, and so that is very telling because you have to understand that he's coming from a perspective of understanding the apparatus, right? That is at hand. There's a
Yeah.
system that is at hand, and so from his perspective, this is how it happens. This is how we ease into that, And so it turns out that it happened that way. We had an opportunity to not have it happen that way when Clinton ran. We also had another opportunity when Kamala Harris ran against Joe Biden, and so. It's turning out to be exactly as predicted is one of those interesting coincidences.
Yeah, let me read a few comments here. Ulrika Bernard says, Liberawi, that's because VP Kamala is his vice, so naturally she's next in line. We were already past the primary and all the money from donors goes straight to her. No one else can get it, but regardless, no one else is more qualified than her. Then we have Urimadenge who says, how do you believe we can encourage our young generation to vote and also help them understand that it's not just presidency, but all elected seats? So
I
you're
wanna
going to
talk
answer
about that.
Yeah. So you're going to, let's just pause. You're going to answer that question. Ulrika Bernard says, TikTok, that's the fastest and simplest way to move people in numbers. And the Gen Z has that on lock. And then Evans Marube says, very true. American Constitution has loopholes. Any Dick and Harry can run for presidency with no public record. Trump, with no public office, ran away with the presidency. No checks. A felon can be a president. The Constitution is shallow on executive. And then Luis Muya says another factor is also funding funds. Another factor is also funding. Funds raised by Biden-Harris campaign cannot be transferred to another nominee. And then Ruth says they endorsed her earlier in the week. Stephen JJ says Bernie Sanders is yet to endorse as well. And then Ulrika Bernard says, we already knew the Obamas were going to endorse. I don't get why everyone was so pressed to have it right away when we haven't even hit DNC yet. And then Rika says, can we all discuss how brainworms should drop out too? Because why dilute the vote? And then Rika Bernard says, Nikki Haley is a whole flip-flop. She goes with the wind inherently. I don't think she's MAGA, but she had to fall in line to keep her place. So let's go back to Udi's interesting question. How do you believe we can encourage our young generation to vote and also help them understand that it's not the presidency only, but all elected seats? Annette.
I like to focus on down ballot, all elected seats. I like to focus on judges. There is a statistic out there that says that most people who are going to, well, basically what it implies is that people are more likely to engage in behaviors that, might have you encountering the police, crimes, petty theft, those type of things in their younger years. And then as you get older, you're less likely to have those type of interactions. We get older, we mellow out, which means that young people are very likely to pay attention to what's going on when it comes to policing, reforms around that. And then what's going on as far as judges is the one thing that might get missed, but is super, super important for that demographic specifically, because you're more likely to have some of those encounters, just statistically, not saying anything, but we all know that when we're young, we think we're invincible, It's more likely to see the younger person speeding down the highway than it is to see an old man. That's just kind of some facts that we have there. And so that is something that we can focus on, are the things that they're encountering on a regular basis. But I wouldn't be too discouraged, just because based off of the activism that's happening within Gen Z here in the US, but also globally, there is clearly a galvanization of this population in a way that hasn't happened in recent history. And so not necessarily the excitement, the engagement that we're seeing here leads us to believe that there's going to be a bigger voter turnout. Now, this demographic is very interesting from a statistical standpoint, because they're trickier to gauge what they're going to do. They're a little bit of a wild card because you don't have the history. Now, those of us who have voted in 2, 3 elections, honestly, even just the one, then there's some statistical information that says you're very likely to vote this way based off of your previous voting history, right? For them, we don't have that. Some of them, this is going to be their first election being involved at all. So encouraging them it's really about focusing on issues that affect them. And it's it's something that people take for granted sometimes, but I don't think this administration can afford to take Gen Z for granted.
Yes. Yeah, that will be very important. Now, another question here. Do you think the Republicans were a bit too quick to pull the trigger on selecting the vice president? And I think they had to select one because they had their convention happening. I don't know that it's a requirement to select a VP candidate prior to the convention, but it looks like they picked a VP from a state that's already solidly Republican.
Ohio.
Yeah. J.D. Vance.
I'm going to say this again.
So do you think that might have been a bit too quick, with, of course, in hindsight, not knowing that this change was going to happen of Kamala Harris being the Democratic nominee for president?
I'm just going to say that the Republicans know what they're doing. When it comes to some of these decisions, they're very well organized. They've been considering this since Trump lost. Who would be the next person? J.D. Vance is not just anybody. He's a member of the Heritage Foundation. He is somebody who got into politics suspiciously recently, and then now is the VP pick. That was not by accident, okay? This is a person who needed to have some sort of political background in order to be an eligible person for this position, and so he did just that. I wouldn't say that this was haphazardly done at all. This was done on purpose. I don't know their thinking or their purpose behind it, but I wouldn't put that. Now, did they prepare for him being the pick and then now dealing with Kamala Harris? And right now we don't have a presumed VP pick for that ticket, and that's something that we're going to be awaiting for the next couple of days. So am I going to be unplugging? No, because the next time I unplug is when they're going to they're going to pick a VP, and then
Yeah, and the VP, what white dude is going to be picked for
why
the
the
VP?
white dude statement?
But, yeah, no, because it's going to be a white dude.
Politics is a
yeah.
Omosh,
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
let's see what Omosh thinks.
Let's be honest.
Let's be honest about it. Let's talk about it.
Let's be honest. This is America. You have a black woman who's running for president. There's no way.
Excuse me.
There's no
boss,
way.
Boss. Excuse me.
There's no.
The right, and very many people say she's not black.
Okay. Well.
I mean, she's
well,
the only person
that's-
who
that's
can
the-
say what
that's
she
the
is.
instruction. Yeah.
usinterrupt mtu kupeana propaganda tafadhali kama.
So I think the
But it's true.
you can't pick a Hakeem
Hiyo ni shida
Jeffries.
yao.
You can't pick a Hakeem Jeffries, for example,
Okay.
who would be a very qualified, like running mate,
Or Westmore.
or Wes Moore. You can't pick a Wes Moore or a Hakeem
But
Jeffries.
I think I'll echo what my governor said. Wes Moore very recently on an interview spoke to that, and he said that for him that is definitely a big consideration that's out there, and we have to be realistic in the country that we're in, right? But the part that he said was he was told the same thing when he was running, and he made a choice, and it was a woman, someone who is of an immigrant,
Yeah.
and someone who is a person of color, and so that was not the quote unquote ideal choice. He should have had.
That was a gutsy choice, actually.
It was a very bold choice,
Yeah.
but he picked the person that he thought he could run best with and could work best with. And Aruna Miller is a wonderful individual. I've had the opportunity to interact with her on multiple occasions, and so with just echoing that, I would say that I agree with Westmore in that it's you want to pick the person that you're going to work best with. However, there is the reality that we're not just talking about one state. We're talking about the entire country, and so galvanizing people around the entire country and having two people of color in the White House, that would be very, very challenging. And so it's already a challenging situation, and more than likely she's going to pick somebody who is going to be a white male, and maybe one day that will not yes, and hopefully that's not going to be the case for too many years to come, that we see a bit more diversity. But I happened to do a White House visit recently, and I went with my little people, and one of them stated, after there's a like a welcome center, and you see all of the presidents down there, and the statement was, they're all boys. Why are they all boys? So I'm very much looking forward to the day that is different and going back.
Wow,
But
we're in very interesting times.
Umemaliza kuulizia swali ya who's the best pick.
Now the
VP.
Yeah, I mean the VP pick. I have two people I have in mind. I could be entirely wrong, because I'm thinking in terms of someone who could bring power to a state.
Where to appear your two people, and then you tell us why.
Yeah. So the two people I have, number one, I have number two, I have the current governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. Who's in his mid to late 60s. But I think North Carolina right now it's kind of leaning Republican, but that's a potential state that could become toss-up if the right moves are made, because they have a Democrat governor, so they could potentially vote for a Democratic candidate for president. I think the downside is that he's older, and then to me my second pick is the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro. That's another part of the blue wall. Pennsylvania. It's very important. If this was Kenya, I would shift and I would carry people. In Kenya, what people do when people shift. If Annette is running in the next constituency, we'll all shift and go register there, so that we can go vote. Yeah, I live less than an hour from the Pennsylvania line, so and that's a very rural part of Pennsylvania. So I think that's going to be a very, very important state, because to me, the three states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and which was the third one? Michigan. Those are critically important.
What about Georgia?
To me, at this point, if we win Georgia, to me it's a steal. Although with Kamala coming in, because Georgia had started leaning Republican by the polls. So if we win Georgia, I think with Kamala, with all the activation of black people in registering and wanting to vote for her, so Georgia may come into play. But for me, Georgia, just like it was a steal during Biden's time, I will still consider it a steal. It's not a state that I would count on so much. There's the Arizona guy. I'm forgetting his name, Kelly. Yeah, Arizona is still also kind of leaning Republican, which is why I would stick to the North Carolina guy and to the Pennsylvania guy. The Pennsylvania guy is a bit young. I think he's in his early 50s. So those are my picks. But then, this has been a year of surprises.
It has.
Who knows?
I'm not one to
Ali,
say who
I
pick.
agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you on Shapiro. That for me, based on, like as you said, everything that you look at it, I agree on Shapiro, because I think Shapiro can help with those Rust Belt states. And let's be honest, it's gonna be he fits the YT dude, and his age is not that gone too much. He's not, so he can appeal to both the older, because the reason we want a YT guy, and especially a YT guy who's middle aged and going up, is for the white older voters. That demographic is the demographic we want. And then we also want a demographic with somebody that's coming from those Rust Belt states, those working states, the states that have iron mining and all that stuff. And with him, we know that iron mining is a big thing in Pennsylvania. That is one of the things that Biden actually, one of the positives from Biden. He revived that industry. So if this is a governor who comes from a state that was revived, and he knows the importance of it, so he clearly can motivate and stimulate the Rust Belt voters, who are also very important in terms of stealing, on making steals on that demographic. So for me, Shapiro is the one that I look at all the Democrats that have been fronted. I look is good. Michigan, it would have been good, but we cannot have an all-women ticket. We cannot have two women
the
running
Michigan
for VP.
governor.
Yeah.
What about
we cannot have those two.
What about is he the Transport Cabinet Secretary, Pete Buttigieg?
No. That one, it will be a turn-off to most of the YT voters, especially the older YT voters.
Yeah, why, Annette, are you shaking your head? Don't you think that he might?
I am a
where
fan
is he from?
of
He's
him.
Is he from Iowa?
I'm a fan of him.
Yeah.
He ran he also ran
it
at
was an
one
interesting
point.
campaign.
It was a very interesting campaign. It did appeal to the younger voter, and so I have, I respect the campaign that he ran. Now that he's dealing with transportation, he did come to the state of Maryland, unfortunately, when we had the bridge collapse, and has actually garnered a pretty good reputation across the nation when it comes to him fulfilling his role in that particular right now. And so the reason I'm shaking my head is just because he's not going to do, like, these things are strategic. You don't pick haphazardly. So when Obama picked Biden, there was a lot of thought about that, and it's not like something where you go and you pick your best friend and you're like, hey, let's go, we work well together. It's not like that.
Like the Kenyan handshake.
No, it's none of that. The people you like,
Dang
they end up,
haters.
maybe they might get a role that they want, but they're not going to be the VP pick. And so it's very strategic. You want someone like everything that has been said. I agree about galvanizing certain demographics, and also to lighten the load. So Kamala Harris can only be in one place at one time. When you have your VP pick, then now you can start splitting the nation and going and visiting different places at the same time. And so, you need to have like 2, 3, 4 touches, which is like interactions that an individual has with your campaign in order to garner their support if they did not have your support in the beginning, right? And in Kamala Harris's situation, she is new, and so she has to, make a lot of efforts for those who are undecided. But something that is also going to be affected by her VP pick is, again, the new voter registration. So when this announcement was made and the endorsement was made, we had thousands of individuals go online and figure out how they can register to vote. There's never been a registration drive that has garnered.
So that was
many.
Just a reaction to
It
the
was
announcement.
A reaction.
Wow. Okay.
So people were like, "Oh, what? He's stepping down? Am I registered to vote? I need to
Go check.
I need to
figure it
figure
out."
this
No.
out.
And
Yeah.
it was like
Register.
38,000 people, or
Yeah,
however many.
40,000.
Yes,
Yeah.
amount of people who individually made that decision. And I mean, there was no get out the vote campaign that happened immediately after.
Yeah.
This was unsolicited. This was people saying, "I'm taking the initiative and doing that." And so the VP pick can do that as well. If she picks someone that excites people, then you're gonna have more people do voter registrations. And we know statistically that new voters lean independent and Democrat,
Yeah.
right? And so that doesn't mean that new voters can't be
Yeah.
Republicans, but Republicans just have a culture of registering to vote like immediately as soon as you are qualified in the state. And so their numbers are very solid. And that's why Trump doesn't have to do a lot of work. Like, he knows what his base is, and he also knows that everyone who is Republican, for the most part, they're going to support him. They're going to vote for him. And so he doesn't have to do that much work. His rallies are more like inspirational meetings, as opposed to talking about what
Issues.
the party is
Yeah.
going to do and issues and things like that. The Democratic Party is very distinctly different because it's very issues focused, but we also needed some galvanizing. We also needed some inspiration. And so Harris did bring that. There's a new momentum. And so she's going to want to pick somebody who is going to continue that momentum and up the ante.
Okay, comments here coming in. Ulrika Bernard says, what's happening in the U.S. right now is a great first step to get people involved. A lot of folks don't understand the chess in the game. They only see the checkers. We need the House and the Senate. But most of all, you need to vote for local election, because that's what directly affects your life. From your cops on the street to the conditions of the roads, Kamala matters, but your local elections matter more, because she can't get much done without the folks that follow her. And then Award Joanne says Westmore wants to run for president. And then Ulrika Bernard says Westmore is great, but he's new. Hakeem is amazing, but an all-black ticket will guarantee a loss. Maybe Shapiro, because he's ready to throw hands. And then Awar says Shapiro or Bashir. I don't know about Bashir. Bashir is the governor for Kentucky.
Yes.
I don't know. I know he can be good in getting, the Rust Belt, but Kentucky in itself is not a battleground state. And then
I don't the name of battleground state.
Yeah.
Old white voters. We need to steal some numbers.
We need to steal them. Okay.
Yes.
Evan says Pennsylvania has been on the news lately from Trump's unfortunate events to pick Governor Shapiro. Pennsylvania is a swing state, but is always critical. And then Stephen JJ says Governor of Pennsylvania, Joe Shapiro. Esther Mulusa. Esther, tell us where you're watching us from. That place that you call Shimalavandu or whatever the name. Tell us where you're tuned in from. And then Udi Madenge says Georgia is going Dems. I am not sure, Udi. I hope it does.
On the ground, in Georgia, Woody is right.
No, I hope it does. But
let me tell you the rhetoric when you're there.
Yeah.
Even the ads you see.
No, I agree with you. Of course, if you're in Atlanta,
it's a totally different animal.
But
if you're in Atlanta, yes.
Go ahead. Let me give you because I see where Ali is coming from, right? Remember, Georgia Democrats are in two places: Atlanta and what's the name of this other? The Beach,
Savannah.
Savannah.
Yeah.
Those two places. That is where the numbers are.
Yes.
Now, the rest of rural Georgia, right? Rural Georgia is where the problem is.
Big
And
problem.
that is why you see I keep insisting on we need to cut a chunk of that old white people vote. Because now that Biden has gone, we have lost it to Trump. He controls it right now. Biden took a chunk of it from him. So we need a VP who's good. So, and in Georgia, which the elections usually, remember how they're campaigning in Georgia. They're campaigning in Georgia. They're telling him, look, our leader is being crucified by these people who we allowed in our place, our home, because they still see black people as slaves there as Wakeni.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's why they look at it. It's being done here. So we need to make sure that this place we sanctify it and make it clean for our leader to be safe. So they are coming in numbers. The rhetoric they're pushing out there is totally different from RTCG national politics. For them, they're being told, if they can crucify Trump, what stops them from taking over the state from us?
Now, Georgia, according, there's how the ground feels, and there's also what the polls are saying. And the polls have also, it's become more difficult to poll over the years.
Georgia is very tough to poll.
Georgia,
until you see that thing.
Georgia.
I hear all of that.
So Georgia, according to the Cook Political Report, it's not even a toss-up. It has it leaning Republican, but it's something that can, because typically the margin of error is 3. So if it's within 3%, it will be listed as a toss-up. If it's more than 3%, it's gonna go towards leaning. So it's not like Georgia cannot come back. I believe it might come back to toss-up once we have newer polls coming in. Because like Michigan now is tied. Michigan is now tied. Kamala Harris and Biden was down by 3 points. So I think within a week, within 2 weeks, we're going to start seeing some shifts.
I just like to say about Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta is, when it comes to what you're seeing on the ground, what you're feeling, and what the rhetoric is, whether you are in the country or whether you're in the cities, one thing about Georgia is that the Republican Party has made its best due diligence effort to make sure that voter suppression is the norm there. And so you have to understand some of the nuances in how voting happens in the state of Georgia. Georgia is one of the places that Trump called up and said, hey, we need to figure out these numbers. Like,
give him a number.
Georgia is one of those places, right? Because he has friends over there, and also there's an understanding of how they do elections in Georgia. And so if you are in Georgia, one thing that I would say is, of course, get out and vote, and
make sure you're on the rolls.
You make sure that you're registered to vote, but then also don't stop paying attention, for the next 4 years after this. There are grassroots movements that are trying to change the laws so that these types of tactics are no longer acceptable in the state of Georgia, and that the representation can actually reflect those who live within the state.
Okay. All right. And then a war here says Wisconsin will be out on the road to the White House. I don't know exactly what that means. Use simple English, Awar. Wisconsin will be out on the road to the White House. Use simple English, or maybe say it in Kiswahili, because I don't know what exactly that means. And then Grizzly Proxy says Buttigieg being a VP would give Trump a landslide victory. And then Apa Kenyanjui is coming with some compliments. Kenyanjui karibu sana. He says, I have always been unapologetic paragasha for Annette, a smart, eloquent woman. My question is, when are you running for local office? Bust a move, mama. So I don't know that that's a question or whether it was a statement.
That Kenyan.
No, that is also a question I've always wanted to ask.
Okay, let's pause there. No, let's pause there. Annette, any plans? Yes. Any plans?
What are your political?
No,
the
because
voice. Oh gosh, the voice.
Because you're within the local Democratic establishment in Baltimore County. You've worked for a county executive who's now running for U.S. Congress.
Wow.
Yes. So what are we looking? I know this is 2024. This may be a bit close, but is there anything you're looking at in the near future? Do you want to make an announcement? Maybe start looking for paid staffers, an exploratory committee, volunteers.
I think when that time comes, I will make a point to announce on this forum.
Okay.
On this
Okay,
platform?
on,
All right.
on this
Oh,
platform,
good.
I
So,
will,
'cause,
I will
yeah.
come and announce.
You know, Annette is the original boots on the ground.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
yeah, like when you say somebody has put in work, she's the original boots on the ground. Like if you want an example of how political canvassing can be done or anything, just learning how to get involved in politics, and that is one of those. And the one thing that I like about what Annette does, it gets noticed. And I will tell you, this is one of those conversations where I do have a bunch of friends that I made when I was in that app called Clubhouse, who are younger, and that's demographic and generation. And guess what? Right now, they're the ones who are on the booth on the ground, canvassing and teaching people about local elections, registering to vote, and things like that. And that is why I'm also enthusiastic about Kamala's candidacy, because remember when Obama came out and was running, young people are the ones actually who came out, young black people came out and registered and voted. And it's the same thing that's happening right now in this social media. When you look out, like even if you see, like if you see people who are checking the rhetoric from Republicans, it's black people with funny memes and everything, but they're checking them with facts. It's a meme, but it comes with the fact, and then guess what? They start a conversation and they teach each other, they tell each other, go register for voting because this is what's going to happen. It wasn't happening when Papa Joe was on. She's brought it out, and it's because of the young folks like Annette that we can say that this country might be saved.
Okay.
Because this election was taking this country in a very bad direction.
All right.
So Mika, are you saying that my pick for VP Michelle Obama is a no-go? I'm just asking.
No, it's all
no
jokes. Those
But
are big
let me
jokes
ask
that
you.
people like
me,
make.
that's my pick.
Yeah. Those are
Almost
nice
let me
jokes
ask
that
you.
people like.
I'm voting with my heart.
Almost let me ask you,
Yes.
why do people want to force Michelle into politics when her herself doesn't want that?
Me.
Because remember, Michelle had a chance to be in politics when she was young in college.
Correct.
And she took a different direction and allowed Barack to go with the political direction. Why do people want to force her to go to a route she doesn't want to go? She's never spoken or said that she wants to do that.
Because her kids are grown now,
No,
we want
even
her to run.
no, even forget about that. Even if she did run,
Yes.
Michelle would not win, you know, and I'm sorry to burst people's bubble. You know, she would not win.
Very well.
These are nice things that people say, but you know, when you go to the nuts and bolts of politics, it's things are very different. I know that's a popular thing.
Nice.
I've been hearing it on WhatsApp groups and people, you know, like talking. Oh, if Michelle would have run this and that. No, you know, like that would not.
That would have been a lost. That the first Tuesday of November.
Yes.
That would have been a loss. The Republicans would have won the election by 8 a.m.
To buttress your point,
Yes.
Democrats want to fall in love, Republicans fall in line.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfectly
Absolutely. And I think
So is that why Democrats are always nice and Republicans step on your neck even when you're down and you can't breathe?
No, the thing with Democrats will heavily criticize, you know, like there's no perfect candidate, but they will heavily criticize a qualified person. Republicans have Trump. You know, someone who has felonies,
and that is why,
someone who has rape allegations,
and that is why,
but they will fall in line.
It's just dirty and nasty.
And then when you ask them, why do you support Trump? Oh, President Trump is gonna fix this country.
He's gonna drain the swamp.
That is the only answer. That is the only answer they have.
And what
about the economy? It's Trump's during. No. President Trump is the best president ever. For them, in a cult.
And that is what
for them, it's like a cult. They don't really care about policy. Alisha Sama is chasing away the Muslims. He's chasing away the immigrants. He's gonna close the border. No more immigrants are gonna come in.
Okay.
And he's gonna uphold the Bible. He's have a candidate.
Okay.
And by the way, even to make us point, he can't even name one verse.
He
of the Bible.
He talked about
He cannot even.
2 Corinthians.
No,
You
even
know,
before that.
Yeah, 2
Corinthians.
You know, I'm a Muslim and I even
No,
know. And I even know there's no such thing as 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians is
And,
what?
and that is why
Yeah.
when you start when,
Corinthians are working.
when and that is why like when, at the beginning with the show when you talked
Yeah.
about when I talked about how I was still in support of what was irking me a lot was how the there was a self
Self annihilation.
maze when you see how it doesn't matter who on the Republican side things are, it doesn't matter. Nikki Haley has fallen in line, Lindsey Graham fallen in line, Marco Rubio, all those idiots in 2016 were saying what? Were saying one thing. Right now they're falling in line. Nikki Haley herself at one point in time was like, this guy I'll not kiss the ring. What
Fall
did she
in
do?
line.
And
She
that's
fell
what
in line.
Hogan is going to do.
You
Yeah.
sure?
I am certain that Larry Hogan, if he wins his Senate seat, right now he has ads going
Oh, yeah,
out
he's gonna
saying
do- yeah,
that
he's gonna
not
toe
going to
the
take
line.
away reproductive rights. He's not going to do this. He's not going to do that. I have not heard a single Trump criticism from him since he announced his candidacy.
Correct.
I have not heard him say how it is that he's actually. I was trying to look up what his platform is on the way here, and I couldn't get. I don't know. I wasn't able to get it in the time that it took me to get here. He is going to do exactly what he's told to do.
Okay. All right. More comments here. Ulrika says, inspirational meetings, I'm here for it. I think this was in reference to Donald Trump. And then Evans Marube says, Shapiro is a favorite. Biden is from Delaware, a neighborhood state. Bloomberg, Cuomo, Giuliani have been New York mayors. New York is close to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is criticizing. I don't know what exactly that means. And then
I
Esther
think she
says,
meant critical.
oh, it's critical, yeah. And then Esther Mulusa says, I'm still in Kakamega, right next to the mighty Kakamega forest. Shimalavandu is the bus stop, listening and learning a lot. I don't know that Kakamega got something in this new handshake cabinet, but we're going to be talking about that shortly.
She needs to check with
I will
yeah.
just say Oparanya, but
Yeah.
carry on.
She needs
Yeah.
to check with Chief Louis on the do's and don'ts on when you fly back.
Yes, and then Ulrika Bernard says, speaking of Georgia, Kamala needs Stacey Abrams because she's a beast when it comes to getting folks to vote.
I was going to ask about that meeting you had if Stacey was in the meeting.
And then Awar says she has a branch for Kamala already. Oh wow, okay, so there's no wasting time. And then Udi says, I agree that Georgia has tried to suppress votes. I live in the suburbs and I see guys didn't vote. Esther Mulusa says, good job, Annette. I hear you. I will be back just in time to vote for Harris and whoever she chooses. Kenyan Jui says, you see all this Mafisi hopping on my mstaris for Annette. Stopping, bring, compare for nothing.
Stop bringing compare.
Stop bringing compare for nothing.
I think that's what he meant to say.
Okay, I
that
think that's what he
this-
meant,
I think
yeah.
it's discombobulated even by.
Is discombobulated
by Annette, yeah.
Mark Evan is
He doesn't
typing.
even know how to
Isaac type.
speak.
No, Isaac type.
Yeah.
Discombobulation.
Mwambie akuje kwa show ajitetea hapo Facebook.
His speaketh is not spoken.
Or acha piga simu 202-683-4570
4570 press star 5 to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Annette, Kenyan Jew is saying, Annette, let it be on record that I was fast to profess. I was the first to profess on this panel before all these other guys jumped in on the bandwagon.
His Pagarasha. What did he call it?
Paragasha. Yeah.
Eshio.
I don't know that Annette knows what that means, but I will
she'll learn.
translate it for
She'll
you
soon
later.
learn.
Yeah. And then Ulrika Bernard says that's because Michelle exudes love and that's what this country needs, Mika. And then
Falling in love and falling in line.
and then Awar says Michelle is chilling. We have so many black women who can run the country. She has been there already. She understands who she is in this political space. And then Esther here says Michelle is more popular than Harris. She would still cascade on the Obama euphoria. She's intelligent and articulate, and
But-
I totally disagree.
But let me tell you something.
Yeah.
And this is what. And again, I think
Yeah.
Which
people,
point?
Mika people need to listen to Mika because, again, he said Michelle did not want anything to do with politics.
She sure did.
And she wrote
She
it
did not.
She
She did
sure
not.
did.
in two
Yeah.
books.
Mhm.
She only got involved just to support the habit.
To support the hub, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
She is not going. She would up.
And even if for argument's sake, even if she did, for the sake of the country,
you're falling in love
Yeah.
There's falling in love and then there's falling in
So
love.
you're saying that some of us who like meals and boons tufunge.
Mufunge na mukwende.
Anyway, I want to.
Almost level. Have you ever seen the most attacked person that they built a hate on? Even when they were attacking Obama, they could not attack him. They used to attack Michelle.
Okay. Anyway,
So it will be a very easy candidate for them to sell against.
yeah. So Sawa, Michelle is not gonna run.
Wacha Michelle
Let,
apumzike
let,
mahali yako.
let me read comments over here. On,
There's some comments on YouTube. Okay,
yes,
go ahead.
Julia Masheke says Gen Z is leading the revolution globally by galvanizing, gathering, protesting to get the change they need. I'm proud of what they're doing with Kenya leading the charge on Ruto must go. So proud. And then Gladys Kamal says NC is a red state and hashtag Kamala all day.
Okay, all right. Glado, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to remind the listeners that you're tuned into the One Mic Show. I'm your host and producer, Ali Badawi. We're here talking about the changing dynamics of the U.S. presidential race. And of course, in studio tonight, we have our U.S. politics and culture contributor, Miss Annette Karanja. Annette, of course, is a second-generation Kenyan raised in Baltimore, Maryland. She's a political activist who focuses on social justice, economic and political rights for immigrants. Annette is also a member of Baltimore County's New American Task Force and a recipient of a public service award from her local chapter of the Democratic Party. We'll shortly be talking about what President Biden stepping down of the White House race means for the deals he signed with Kenyan President William Ruto following the recent state visit. So I want you to stay tuned for that. Our lines are open. No one has called today. Kenyan do call 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Feel free to call in.
Let me answer Kenyan Jui's call.
Now, before we continue, before we go into the next part, did anyone watch South Sudan basketball? That was before against the U.S. team.
Oh,
Yes.
the pre-Olympics?
It was 100 to 101.
Yes, it was a one-point victory by the U.S.
The pre-Olympics?
Yes, the pre-Olympics, the friendly.
I didn't watch it, but from the reports on the ground, boss,
That team is fire. It is fire.
Had LeBron not done what he does,
Had LeBron not LeBroned. I mean,
ingekuwa story ingine.
and you know, here's the interesting thing: all the big guns were there. Steph Curry, Anthony Davis,
This is
LeBron,
good. It's good for
Joel
them.
Embiid. And you know, I know it was, like kind of like a friendly before the Olympics. But
And the funny thing is that both teams are in the Olympics.
It was a
both
scrimmage.
team are in the
It was-
Olympics.
yes,
It was a scrimmage.
But
It was a scrimmage.
some of the teams even doing the pre-trials, whatever, not all of them are not in the Olympics.
not all of them are in
Yeah,
the
but-
Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. When those two teams meet in the Olympics,
Mhm.
the US will wallop South Sudan.
The-
It will not even be a close. It will not be a close game.
I will wait.
No, I mean, okay.
One thing you have to consider is that even before the game were playing, there were players who are like American players before the game, even just from the interviews and walikuwa mwadharau. They were like the interviews, the way they were speaking, they were so condescending. They were like, even the way they were playing, they were not showing up. Anthony Davis, like the only player who played the way he played was LeBron, because LeBron is, for somebody to play his age, it's just like asking Messi or Cristiano to play friendly or a walking pass. He's the only guy who was playing with that pace who maintained his pro. It's in him. But if those two teams met again in a competitive match,
Okay, fair enough, Mika. But South
South Sudan
Sudan,
or Limwambaya.
okay, but South Sudan are no pushovers.
They
You know,
sure are.
No, they're not
because-
pushovers.
because
They're
I-
not pushovers.
I'm a basketball fan, and I was just watching
I
their
saw,
game.
I saw, I saw
Forget about-
bits and pieces
forget
of how
about-
how they play the game.
Forget
and all
about,
of that.
forget about, maybe America did not give it their all for that game. Maybe they were just, it was just a scrimmage for them, and South Sudan came all out. But if you watch the team and the way they are moving, the way they are playing, they're no pushovers. I'm interested in watching, the games that are gonna be played actually in the Olympics.
Aren't they supposed to play today, or is it?
I don't know. I don't know the scheduling of the games.
Today
but
was the opening.
it was the opening ceremony.
Yeah.
But there was some
But
games
there's a
that were
game.
already
No,
played. There were some games that
Yeah,
already
South
started.
Sudan has
Soccer,
to play today.
soccer had already started.
Rugby,
rugby had
the
already
sevens.
started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will be following the South Sudan team. And interestingly enough, South Sudan has also played with Kenya. And Kenya has been fairly competitive against South Sudan.
Correct.
The difference that South Sudan has right now is that they have Luol Deng, and
On the
Luol Deng
bench.
has just taken the team to a whole different level. So that was interesting. That's a team we'll be watching out for this coming Olympics. And then there were some comments that were still coming in as we're talking. Evan says Trump is a bullying around the Republican Party. Bullies are always punished on the ballot. Harris atabeba. And then Stephen JJ says atimfunge na mukwende. I don't know exactly what Stephen JJ means. I don't know. Maybe he's responding to someone on something. And then Upper War says y'all bring Hogan and also Brooks here. Runs and hides. I would leave it at also Brooks. Challenge to you, Annette. If you can find,
Wacha Hogan akuje.
yeah, if you can find, I don't know about Hogan.
No.
Yeah,
If he wants, wacha akuje.
yeah, I don't think he will come here.
No.
Yeah,
No. As long as the invite is open,
yeah.
wacha, let him.
Okay,
Promises,
a war
promises.
on Hogan. I'll leave you that challenge.
Yes,
I'll leave you that
award
challenge.
tulete Hogan.
And then Annette atulete
Also Brooks.
Okay, sawa.
But you know
for
what
Senate.
would be nice?
Yeah.
For Annette to bring us Hogan.
No, that's
No,
not
that's
happening.
just stretching.
Hey.
Hey, all
you're
I'm
stretching.
saying is,
These
Yeah,
are
so
critical moments.
At this
I
point,
know,
she might as well talk to Kinyanjui.
This-
You are
this-
stretching, boss.
These are critical moments.
again, all I'm saying,
But anyway, now talking
Doesn't
about Hogan and moving to the Republicans,
Yes.
where we know that Trump will be running for a second shot at the presidency. There's a 900-page document authored by the Heritage Foundation dubbed Project 2025. It is said that this document is a conservative wish list of how a second Trump presidency will look like. Now, Annette, what is Project 2025? And why are Democrats so fearful of it? Because I've been seeing this being thrown around. Of course, I haven't read the 900 pages, but I've done some Chat GPT summaries. So, what for people who don't know what Project 2025 is?
and why haven't you not shared those Chat GPT summaries? But carry on, Annette.
Okay.
So I think it's important to address why is this such a big deal. I think any person who is in the United States should know what Project 2025 is, especially if you identify as a Republican, and especially if you identify as a Democrat. And the reason why is because when you're voting red, this is what they have decided is their Bible. This is what they've decided is going to be what they're going to try and achieve. So they set it down, and it's a very large document. They talk about every single department that exists within the United States, like the entire structure, basically restructuring the country. And the basic summary of it is they want to make America even more comfortable if you are a white conservative
YouTube.
male.
YouTube.
That's
YouTube.
it.
Yeah.
YouTube.
You know, every other demographic is somehow going to be harmed by the things that are in this document,
Are you saying everybody else becomes a second-class citizen?
or
Yes.
more so. I
If
would,
you're not a YouTube person, yes.
I would say definitely they want to create a hierarchy, a caste system. And so, without getting too deep into the sociology of that, there are concerted efforts that are made. It's not randomized. Apartheid wasn't random. They did research, they studied, they decided how they were going to do it, and they enacted laws. And so it's the same type of methodology when it comes to trying to create a state that has, like a caste system or a hierarchy. And most importantly, it's about the consolidation of power. So if I were to summarize the document, it's, about, the conservative males, white conservative males. And then it's also about making sure that certain people have absolute power to govern the country the way that they see fit by destabilizing different parts of government. And the thing is, Project 2025 is not a 2025 goal. This is something that is ongoing. We see evidence of it right now when you look at the things that are going on in the Supreme Court. And so something that I think we should focus on, especially in this demographic, is that if you are if you immigrated here, or if you have family that are immigrants, like, we should really be paying attention to certain sections of the law that would say, for example, the Supreme Court recently was ruling about marriages and saying that you have a right to a fundamental. I think it was Amy
Coney Barrett.
Who made the statement, but I'm not sure. But the statement was that, you know, you have an inherent right to be married constitutionally, but not the right to live together.
Ish.
And the reason why that's significant is because some people have spouses
In
abroad,
other countries, yeah.
and ironically, you know, Trump had his way of doing his things, but he's saying that he can do it, but not everyone else, right? And so, and what demographics typically get affected by this? And I know there's sometimes this argument of like, oh, it's not race, like, let's separate our demographic as African immigrants, or as, you know, Black immigrants from Black Americans. Unfortunately, you cannot do that. This system does not have that type of siphoning. So, for example, when it comes to incarceration, right, there's a lot about police having immunity, which means that they wouldn't have trials if they do something that is untoward a citizen. And so that's something that's in Project 2025. But in addition, when it comes to ICE, when it comes to those detention centers, and those of us who know
The separation of the kids.
it
all
is
of that.
not it is not nice to be detained by them.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, the largest number of people in ICE detention are Kenyans.
What?
Yes.
Hey,
They are
come again,
Kenyan.
come again, come again.
Rewind that song selector,
I, wish,
Marcel.
Come
I
again.
didn't know this was going to come up today. I would have brought up the statistic where I found it. But
The
the
biggest
majority
number of, you know,
people
like
in-
Africans, or the biggest number, the biggest
People.
nationality.
People, period.
People.
Watu.
Like, what's the largest demographic of like race-wise in the American prison system?
Black.
Race-wise, I think blacks are like, is it like 40%?
I'd say
Black
black.
than
I'd say
Latinos.
black than Latinos.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so that is going to be the trend in every single department that you see when it comes to some sort of form of
Can you
detention.
chat GPT there?
Yeah, check it.
And-
And
no,
ChatGPT
yeah,
that
no,
joint.
no, that's
check
something.
that statistic.
I-
But I will
I think
tell you
that's
that the
something that needs a
first
show
two
on its own.
countries,
Yeah.
the first two countries, there was a time Kenya was number one. The next country was also an African country.
Nigeria.
Probably Nigeria.
I think Nigeria was third or fourth, but yeah, the next country was also an African country.
Oh, that's interesting. You know, so these South Asian countries, like, you know, Pakistan, and they seem to have a lot of people here.
It's about the way that they get into the country. It's about, you know,
Okay.
how, you know, your visa may expire. Like, they choose which groups are able to, you know, get in at what time, things like that. So there's that. And it's also the fact that people who are coming from the border, those who are coming from the South, that's like the main tagline that the
Yeah.
Republicans have. But when it comes to that, they get sent back, you know, so they're not being detained for a year and 2 years and waiting for trials and things like that in the same way throughout the entire nation. Now, you'll have certain states that have more of that than, let's say, Maryland, or, you know, some of your northern states. So, of course, there's
The
that
so-called
factor.
safe states.
But in
right.
general, the largest population within ICE detention are Black immigrants.
That's interesting. Now, not Kenyan Jui, Awar says, Jorid is doing a teaching on Project 2025. Get into it. Awar, give us links, give us direction of where we can learn about this. And then Ulrika Bernard says, everyone should be fearful of it. Project 2025 has been in play since the 80s or 90s, but they've been slow walking it. With Trump, they're able to fast track it. It's already been here. If you read it, they've been slowly signing into legislation a lot of what is going on. So I think that's the other part that's very important to teach people, that there are some states, some jurisdictions that are already signing some of these aspects into law. And then Ulrika says, if only the red side decided to grow a backbone like Chris Christie, because I think Kenyan G was asking Annette, do you think Chris Christie, the New Jersey dude, will fall in line with MAGA, or will he sit this one out? So you're going to answer that later. And then Stephen JJ says, I thought it would be Hispanics. That's what I would have thought too. And then Evans Marube says Condoleezza Rice and Michelle Obama are some of the blacks unit in our black minority community. We won't love them soiled in politics mud. They are our modern day Martin Luther Kings. Trump is very good on trashing women, especially black minority. Now, on that question on Chris Christie, do you think he's gonna fall in line? But I don't even know whether Chris Christie is relevant.
He's not very
in
honestly.
this
When
election.
that question came up, I was like, oh, I haven't actually thought about him
Yeah.
in a long time. And what I just now recently saw when I looked at articles about him, you know, he was critical of J.D. Vance. So I guess he's keeping the same tone. But that is just an example of what happens when you go against Trump. And that's why a lot of people are falling in line, because you don't want to become irrelevant. You don't want to be a person that, you know, we're having to Google and we haven't remembered.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
like
know. Totally forgot about him, and the way he was
Completely.
blocking the bridge, the George Washington Bridge. Anyway, moving on to a post-Biden presidency. Prior to all the chaos and protesting that's ongoing in Kenya right now, President Ruto was invited on a rare state visit to Joe Biden's White House. That was back in May. Now, we saw a raft of deals between Kenya and the U.S. signed in sectors including healthcare, climate change, trade and investment, and also debt sustainability. Now, more controversially, there were agreements on military partnerships to bring peace and security to Haiti and other counterterrorism operations. I think one of the operations that Kenya is already effective on right now is being able to try Houthi rebels if they're caught on the Red Sea. That's something that that was in progress. And then Kenya was also granted the status of a non-NATO ally. Then the U.S. government was also to provide financial, very controversially, financial and technical assistance to Kenya's Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, a body that is currently not constituted, but the U.S. is already ready with money. Now, Annette, not to rope you in Kenyan politics, because I know you've been so engrossed with what's happening here, but what happens to such deals during transitions? You know, these gentlemen agreements between the U.S. and foreign governments, Biden and Ruto, that do not necessarily have the force of law. It's not a treaty. It's not something legal. It's just a gentleman's agreement and some documents signed. What typically happens to them during transitions? Let's say, on one hand, maybe if Kamala wins, or if on the other hand, if Trump wins, what is likely to happen to some of these Ruto-Biden deals, Annette?
We've already seen what happened. So when Obama was in office, he had agreements with certain countries. And just to kind of echo what you were saying, is this is not an official treaty. An official treaty would require Congress to agree on it.
To
so the
ratify
Senate
it.
would have to have, I think, 2/3 to agree for it. And then if not that, then, you know, the process would continue however it continues. And so typically, that's not how things goes, because it's really tough to do that. But when it comes to being the president, you do have some latitude as far as like executive decisions that you can make. And so Ruto was definitely counting on a second Biden
term. Yeah.
And so that and I don't think that was a bad thing. I think that you should also look and see what happens if this doesn't continue, because here's the thing. Boots are on the ground in Haiti, okay? If Trump wins, and this is, you know, if you are the president of Kenya, if Trump wins, then what happens? And is there a guarantee for the safety of your citizens should they need to evacuate? You know, because that's a hemispheric issue right there. Like that's one of the reasons why I didn't find that to be a wise choice, in addition to the fact that I don't think we have any business there. So basically, if the candidate goes,
all those deals
are left in the air. You're leaving it to chance. You are hoping now that somebody else who's a totally different person and will have a different agenda or different priorities, even if that's part of their agenda, you're hoping that they're going to prioritize you, and that's just not a realistic.
And you know, the interesting
do.
thing is that before Biden, when Trump was still president, there was a trade agreement, a permanent trade deal that was being negotiated between Kenya and the US under Uhuru's presidency. But guess what Biden did when he came in? That was put on ice. You know, like the trade agreement, it's still there. The negotiations are still apparently going on, but there's been no movement. You know, some people thought that during this state visit is when it's gonna be signed, but that was a Trump deal, and that was gonna be a permanent trade agreement. The only other country that has a permanent, the only other African country that has a permanent trade agreement with the U.S. is Morocco. You know, and Morocco is special to the U.S. because Morocco is one of the first countries to recognize the U.S. During American independence. You know, like the King of Morocco. Yeah, you know, it was one of the first countries to recognize the sovereignty of the U.S. So we've already been able to see what happens during transitions. But I think with this one was different because it was a state visit, and state visits are very rare. You know, these are not things that just happen, you know, like willy-nilly. The last time an African was hosted to a state visit, I think, was Ellen Sirleaf Johnson. And that was, I can't remember what year, but it was maybe 15, 16, 17 years ago.
So the Biden administration clearly had some interest in pivoting had some interest in Africa in general. They held the summit that happened in December. And so that's when, you know, most, not all, but most of the African countries were invited to come and sent delegations. And so that's not something that has happened. I think it was the last time something like that had happened, it was like 12 or so. It was more than a decade.
During Obama's time.
Yeah. So so you know that was that's actually a big deal. You know, to have all of them come and invite them, and then yes, to bring now for a state visit for that to happen again, that is also a big deal. However, it's always going to be about the U.S. interest first.
Correct.
You know, and so the U.S. interests are going to pivot based off of what's going on in the world at that time. And if it is not strategic and or beneficial to uphold some of these statements that are made, then it might not come. And there is some nuance there, and this is one of the reasons why I think it was very important for Ruto to continue doing his world tour that he was doing. And so now that has been halted with the demonstrations that are happening in Kenya, there is a huge dent on what he was trying to develop as a diplomatic prowess. And so now that it has been halted, it's going to prevent him from, I'm not sure what the agenda was, right? So it wasn't all vacations, right? There were some moves that he was trying to make
strategic
on
moves,
on a global scale. And so the fact that he has to be grounded at this point in time is really putting a damper on his ability to actually even offer anything on the international stage. So even if Biden were to continue, until this situation is handled, however that happens, it's going to be very difficult for Kenya to try and ask any favors right now.
So internationally, at least from an American perspective, you know, like Ruto should just stay where he is. He's not going to be able to make any moves because of what's currently happening back home.
I think that the United States has a history of shying away from situations when there is not some sort of domestic solvency. Like you have to have the ability to prove that whatever is being negotiated is going to actually, like, you're going to be able to follow through.
It's a good faith.
You know, and so if you're not able to follow through, then there's no point for the U.S. to get involved.
And the interesting thing is that since all this started, the American ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, she's been missing in action, completely missing in action. She's not been seen.
She's
even the
by
statements
mouth.
being issued by the American embassy do not have her signature on it. You know, like, which is very telling.
She's convalescing.
Yeah, and she's the one who was all over the place with Ruto. You know, like even when Ruto is coming to the U.S., she was here holding Ruto's hand, or go to Silicon Valley, go to Microsoft, go here, go there. She was the one who was kind of like
she set up
pulling.
the meetings.
But wait, Ali, you had a different name for her.
Oh, Meg Jepchirchir Whitman.
Okay.
Yeah. So she,
Ali,
yes, Baker.
I have a different thought. Because she's the one who was pushing Ruto everywhere and everywhere. And then we've seen the way the Gen Z demonstrations have been going on, and people have been calling out and have been calling out her name. Don't you think maybe she's just taking a step back to take her way out of the limelight and let the wrath of the people fall on Ruto as she's pulling strings on the background?
I think she's been pulled over by the State Department.
I don't think so.
You can tell a halt.
Yes,
you can tell.
I think she's been pulled
There
over
are
because
signs.
when you look at previous messages that come from, because I had to go back and look at previous messages that came from the American embassy.
She always signed
she'd always sign it. It would always have a name, Ambassador Godek.
Or it would
Ambassador-
come from her office, like
Yes.
on her letterhead.
Yes. So interestingly enough, she was here, busy inviting people. When Ruto came here to the U.S., she was the one who was personally inviting people
Correct.
to engagements.
It was her
with Ruto.
it was her
It was
office,
her office.
that reached out to me. I have a letter from her. I have her email address. So
Which
yes,
was
so everything,
very unusual.
very active.
And very
Extremely
unusual.
So kwa ufupi yenda nikupatia hiyo bahasha.
Very, very
Yes.
unusual.
You
see?
Yeah. You see?
New info every week. Eh?
Yes. Me come with you.
Money.
Yeah.
And
Hiyo
it's,
pesa tutaifikia.
you can see also now the direct line between those visits and the companies that are mentioned in the statement that was released, right? So we're talking
Yes.
about tech opportunities with
Microsoft, yeah.
specifically, and
HP,
with so these companies that are being named, they're not being named by accident. Even the education portion of it, there's supposed to be a relationship for STEM with Kenya and HBCUs here in the U.S. so that they can have, basically exchange programs between Kenya and the United States. So that's very specific as well. Like, that's very intentional. And so those are things. And then, the money that is lined out for all of those projects, is also very intentional. So this was probably her baby. Like, this was probably
The film industry, I can tell you that for sure. There's a program that was supposed to be happening in the film industry where there's groundwork being laid to kind of build world-class studio and all of that, facilitate, open Kenya up more for being the go-to location to shoot movies if you need an African background, as opposed to going to, say, Botswana
Or South Africa.
or SA is on the expensive side, but people still go there, right? Or was it Zimbabwe? I think so. Yeah, something. So instead of going to Botswana to do some of those, or Zimbabwe, or going to the southern part of Africa, Kenya is more in tune with what America would like because of just the environment. It has all of those things, but it doesn't have the robust industry that is needed. And Nigeria is just like out of the question. It's just not one of those things that they look at as in terms of, I'm going to Africa to shoot in Nollywood.
Right. And
You know
now
what I'm
that
saying?
now that Biden has is not seeking re-election, there is no guarantee that Kamala Harris presidency means that she's still going to be in that post, because that's one of the things that gets reshuffled.
Or even honor.
So you're talking about like Meg Whitman.
Yes. Meg
So
Whitman, got it.
when it comes to the diplomats that are in different
Yes,
countries where they're sent, those are
yes.
handpicked. Those are, and we've experienced it on the other end too, right? When we get a new president, the ambassador here changes.
Yeah.
We recently got surprised when we
Yeah.
lost our friend. That was
presidential
Big Ted,
presidential
he was
appointees
gone.
keep going.
So that
Yeah.
that thing is a very natural part of politics, right? And
yes.
and they understand that their role is completely tied to the political climate back home and to the favoritism that they may not have garnered with those who are making the decision.
So there's a possibility that we may never see Meg Whitman again in Kenya.
It is a possibility. It is at the pleasure of the president.
Correct.
Okay.
She serves at the pleasure of the president.
You know, I was listening to a former special envoy to Haiti from the U.S. His name is Dan Foote. And I don't know whether he was being sensational, but he said he walked out of the process because the idea he was claiming, and I'm going to use the word alleged. This is what he said in some podcast I was listening to. He said that the plan, to Haiti, it was actually using Kenya. It was Meg Whitman's idea. You know, he said it was McWhitman's idea, and him being a special envoy, he was asking, how does this make sense? You know, like where does Kenya come in? So when the idea was pushed, that's when he decided, okay, no, I'm gonna walk out of this process. You know, like I'm no longer gonna be part of this, because he said it wasn't making any sense. Why are we sending Kenya? What ties does Kenya have to Haiti? There's no common language. There's you know, like they're on the other side of Africa. There's no ancestral ties. There's nothing. Even if it's looking for a country to go there in place of America, it did make sense to pick Kenya. So I think these are some of the problematic parts. And we also remember that Meg Whitman, while the election was still being disputed in 2022, she had just been appointed brand new ambassador, no diplomatic experience, no experience in geopolitics, and she came out and said that this was the most free and fair election ever. And she just randomly came and said that. But now later on, seeing all these other things happening is when now people are coming to understand she may have been sent there as a business mercenary. Because you see, one thing that America was trying to do with Kenya, even with Trump's permanent trade agreement and these programs that Biden has, is America had identified Kenya as the center of where they want to experiment, of what they want to do in the rest of sub-Saharan Africa.
That's a very key word.
Yes.
Experiment.
Yes, it's an experiment. Experiment of what they want, how they want to counter China in Africa economically, and how they want to counter Russia in Africa geopolitically. So that's why Kenya was being given a lot of breadcrumbs, you know, take this, take that. But then what America was asking for was so big, like sending boots on the ground to Haiti. That's not a small thing. That's a blackface occupation.
And it's a little bit confusing because Kenya has had the privilege of being a little bit neutral, and so therefore you get to benefit from the relationships of all of the people who are. And the thing that is lost on me is you're in a strategic position when you are neutral like that, because you can say, okay, we're gonna have China come in and help us with this, and then we can, and then if Russia is doing this, we can do that with them, and then also the U.S. You know, Russia less so now, but in general, that neutrality benefits Kenya.
Yes.
So the moment you pick a side, you lose your opportunities. As far as, you know, other opportunities, as far as other trade deals or, you know, things that you've done in the past, they're no longer going to be offered to you in the future. And so I think what was happening was that you know, the United States has been, I guess, a bit consistent when it comes to certain things. And so maybe Ruto thought this is a safe bet to make, but nothing is safe. Like, times change, the leadership changes, and so if it's not a holistic thing, meaning that Congress is on board as well as the president, then, you know, the rest of the world understands that if Congress isn't enacting it, then it is just a piece of paper.
But what got me suspicious of this incestuous relationship between Biden and Ruto is when Biden gave him a shout out in a UN speech. American presidents don't just do that. You know, like he gave a shout out to Ruto, saying, you know, something that he's been a great leader, you know, like on this. And then he was also inserted in the top 100 on the Time magazine top 100 as I can't remember what list he was. Most 100 most influential leaders in the world. So Ruto was inserted there. And you know what people were saying? They were kind of priming him to give him a Nobel Prize for Haiti, because, you know, Ruto is trying to prop up his image globally. The other very suspicious thing on these arguments that they have with Kenya is the funding of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Suspicion. I know America likes talking about China and Russia interfering in foreign elections. America is a very big interferer in foreign elections. And I think this is where they were securing their investment, making sure that Ruto has a second term. Because guess what America wants from Kenya? They want a military base. Because Russia was trying to secure, you know, like a military base in the Sudan, and that's part of the reason why there's a proxy war going on there between the US and Russia and so many other powers. And they were trying to exert their own geopolitical influence on that side of Africa to counter Russia. So there was a lot of problems. And then another thing I think is that I think America, one of the intelligence agencies, they must have a portfolio on this guy, on Ruto, because this guy lined up so fast. He was all about Pan-African wearing, you know, like some ugly, poorly tailored Kaunda suits. And then all of a sudden, when he became president, all of a sudden he's all American. Everything America wants, climate change, anything America wants, he's happy to do it. So I think there's a dossier they have on him. And they're telling him, you see this dossier over here. Remember, his case at ICC was suspended. It wasn't completely taken away. So I think they told him, dude, look, we're going to help you win a second term. You got to cut this, this, and this for us. You know, which is where sometimes, and now I'm moving towards the conspiracy realm. And this might be out of maybe watching, you know, like a lot of CIA movies and stuff.
Sensational.
This guy might be, we don't know. And again, this is alleging. This guy might be an asset of an intelligence agency here in the US, and we don't know. Because the way he was lining up, it did not make sense at all. It wasn't making any sense. Now with this
Are you saying that because it has not naturally been him to kind of line that way? This was
no. What he was saying, you know, like typically you wanna hedge your bets. You see, even Uhuru used to hedge his bets. He would work with the Chinese. He'd work, but this guy put all his eggs
in that
one,
basket.
Yeah, he put all his eggs in one basket, and then he was given a state visit, and then you're suddenly in a magazine, top 100 leaders in the world, and then shortly, remember even what the US did to Abiy Ahmed in Ethiopia? They gave him a Nobel Prize. Right now, Ethiopia is at war, you know, like it fell apart, you know, like there's some parts that want to separate themselves. So, you know, like to me, when Western countries become so good to an African leader, there's a reason why. It's not because they like you.
They always want something, or they have something.
There's something very major they want.
My response to that is going to be, I believe that a key moment in history for African leaders was the passing of the Queen. And I say that because certain people went and certain people did not. So we shall see, I think, when history is written in the years to come, that's going to be a pivotal moment when it comes to some of the shift of the attitudes of the some of the diplomatic relationships and attitudes when it comes to former colonies of the Queen. Another thing that I would say is that what you are describing sounds very, very much like a couple of countries that I can think of. And so history has a tendency to repeat itself. Correct. And it always sounds crazy before the book comes out. Before the things, you know, release. And I'm a big I like books, and so I go in and I have a collection of some things that might be very boring to many people, but to me it is riveting when it comes to some of these things that you are alluding to happening, because they do happen behind the scenes and we don't get to know about it until certain files become accessible to the public.
Become declassified. A good example is former Liberian president. He was a full-blown
Uncle Samuel Doe.
CIA. Not Samuel Doe. Charles Taylor.
Charles Taylor was in like Flint.
He was a
trained
full
everything.
CIA asset. He was a prisoner in Massachusetts, and they crafted an identity for him as a guerrilla fighter and made him a president. And then when they were done with him, they dumped him and they left him for the ICC. And I don't know whether he's still in prison or whether he's still alive. You know, so he was a CIA. This is declassified documents. I mean, I know Kenyanjui here was wondering why I'm going to conspiracy. He was saying conspiracy is the realm of Omosh. But these things, they are conspiracies. They are conspiracies until that's Kenyanjui.
Do you understand?
That's Kenyanjui. That's Kenyanjui. That's not me.
Open the lines, please. Let
Again,
Annette.
the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Now, Kenyanjui was actually saying, I can't believe I'm putting my girl on blast like this. And I think this was a while back. But Annette, you cannot drop a stat like that and not back up with a source. So I can't remember exactly what you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. Tell me what you...
I think it's about
providing sources.
The Kenyans.
The Kenyans.
Being
Oh,
the
the
number.
Kenyans. Oh, yeah. The Kenyans.
Okay, let me find that.
So you can find that.
source.
I'll keep reading the other comments that were coming in. Oh my goodness!
I tried to look for it, but I think
fast.
it's the way I was searching. My chat was not GPT.
Okay, Awar says Casmuel is calling them pro-good governance protests. And then Awar says the U.S. agency for International Development, USAID, also announced an additional $1.3 million youth empowerment program aimed at strengthening political engagement at the subnational level and $600,000 to advance disability inclusion. This is election interference. You know, like I hate saying this, but these are some of the subtle things that sometimes America does to sway votes. And then Joanne says the United States and Kenya announced a new $7 million partnership to advance and strengthen the modernization and professionalization of Kenya's National Police Service, with a focus on staff and training development. Now, National Police Service, remember, our police has already been sent to Haiti. So
Correct.
this right here is a program to see if we can send Kenyan police in many other places that America wants us. So yes, and America has done
Ali,
this
you're
before.
still sticking with this Kenyan police.
Yes.
What is it called? Conspiracy.
No, it's these are things that are Kenya police is in Haiti. That's not conspiracy.
Yeah,
That's not conspiracy.
but basically, you remember, for you stuck with that ground of INI. This is just the beginning, and
Yes.
there's more to come.
There's more to come. There's definitely more to come, and that's why
But now
Biden,
with Uncle Joe being out,
now that's the curveball. This curveball wasn't expected. This curveball, Uncle Joe was betting on a 2-term presidency for Ruto, and Ruto was betting on a 2-term
two-term for-
presidency for Biden,
where they could work
where they could work together.
symbiotically.
Yeah, you remember even when symbolically Ruto went and sat in the Oval Office,
Yes,
and Biden was
yes.
that was very horrible. I don't know whether Ruto understood, you know, what kind of symbolism that showed. It showed that I'm your puppet master. I'm bringing you here, having you sit on my seat, smiling, and I'm gonna make you do anything you wanna do. I don't know whether, you know, like he realized
No, but
it,
for him, he
but
was
that's
just sitting,
horrible.
He was sitting in the so-called most powerful chair. I mean,
That's-
it's just like it's like when we go to visit the UN and then we go over there in the Capodium.
That is horrible. Let me read some more here. Awar is dropping here some facts, I think, from the White House websites. He's saying that on combating corruption, the U.S. administration intends to provide $500,000 for a new fiscal integrity program to make county budget processes more transparent and inclusive and increase citizen engagement, and $500,000 to broaden the reach and effectiveness of anti-corruption advocacy by empowering civil society actors to create and disseminate multimedia content that engages citizens and mobilizes action against corruption. To support the government of Kenya to combat corruption, the administration is providing $250,000 from the Global Accountability Program and $300,000 to support Kenya's proposed whistleblower protection law to strengthen Kenya's anti-corruption legal architecture. In addition, USAID has provided $2.7 million to support the improved enforcement of policy and laws that deal with fraud, waste, and abuse in the delivery of public services to Kenyan citizens. That's too much stuff, which there are those agreements that are not written.
Yes.
There's the written part, then there are those ones that are reached, you know, like in back rooms.
Yeah, I think the one that was just announced was on for whistleblower. I think Ruto announced that one. Was it Jana or Leo? The whistleblower one.
Yeah. Okay, that I've not heard.
Yeah, to get people who basically are whistleblowing to be protected and so on and so forth.
You know,
That's
the thing
kind of
is,
where that money is coming from. Go ahead, Mika.
The thing is, if you've noticed, a lot of this money that we're getting it comes tied up with social issues. And usually when they do that, what we look at is we start discussing and arguing about the social issues that have been tied to this money. Because there was also some money which was coming that was supposed to be tied up into policies based on LGBTQ, and then there was also some that were coming in based on policies of carbon footprints. Then there was some that were coming in on basis of human rights and corruption. These are the things that will get people talking, and we'll see it. And then we forget to look at what, as Alia said, Ruto gave up when he was giving Biden. So there's a lot of small loans that were given in this agreement, dealing with healthcare, human rights, climate change, and at the end of the day, it was a business deal that was not serving Kenya in any way. Even the reforms that were coming in for the police, if you say you want to reform the police in Kenya, what are the first two things you're going to do? You're going to improve the housing, you're going to improve the training, you're going to improve the salaries. Never have you seen, even in this thing that they're saying they're trying to modernize and everything, nobody has come up with a clear instruction on how they're improving it. They're not being trained how to handle crowd control, they're not being trained how to handle certain issues. They're not being trained how to, they're not being improved in any way. They're not being improved in ways on how to handle certain attack scenarios. That is why we have a Westgate, whereby 3 terrorists will hold off more than 700 police for hours because they don't have that specialized training on how to handle certain things. So the deals were bad, regardless of how you look at them. And Ruto, at this point, will have to do a lot of shuttle diplomacy. The ambassador that he employed over here, the new one, will have to convince whoever comes in power why this deal should continue.
Wow. You know, and this is Mika, this is where, unfortunately, you know, the way Gen Zs back home were checking, you know, like credentials and qualifications of some of these people in office. We need to hire them to start checking people who are being given diplomatic appointments, because we saw them being vetted by parliament and they were very useless. Has
that even arrived?
No, I don't even know if he's arrived. So no diplomatic experience. He hasn't arrived here yet. So America tactfully, you know, like one of my sleuths, my moles, informed me that this is from a mole or a sleuth. They had informed me that President Ruto, because remember how Big Ted, and Big Ted needs to come and tell us his story. Remember Big Ted?
Yes.
And I think this is season for revelation, which is why we should reveal these things. Remember how Big Ted worked so hard in mobilizing people, you know, just as he's supposed to be to go to attend the programs that President Ruto was supposed to be hosting out here in the US. And then Big Ted left for Kenya. He was supposed to come back, but guess what? Big Ted never came back. So
I was with him in Kenya, actually.
Yes, Mika was actually with him in Kenya at that time when he was supposed to be here. So President Ruto wanted his people on the ground by the time when he was coming.
Yes.
But you see, if you're a new ambassador, you don't know the lay of the land.
Yeah.
And I think America very tactfully did not, because usually for an ambassador to be approved, they have to go to the White House to get those credentials.
Yes.
You have to present. You have to present your paperwork to the sitting American president.
To the sitting American president.
Whoever is basically coming to DC.
What White House cleverly did, I wish I had a mole or a sleuth in the White House. Maybe Annette, maybe you can help me get one. What the White House cleverly did is that they just told the Kenyan side akuna date, there are no dates available, because they're the ones who release the dates. This is the date when we're receiving.
Yeah, this is when the president is available to receive whoever you're bringing.
So there was no date availability before the state visit. So this guy could not come in as an ambassador, and before you're credentialed by the president, you are just a raia. You're nothing. You cannot. You cannot perform.
A chap who works at the embassy.
Yeah, you're a chap who works at the embassy. You can't engage in any way, shape, or form. So that's something that tactfully America did. So right now, I don't know whether the current ambassador has come. Because
Amaya has already been
Amaya
has been reassigned.
Amaya is out.
Right, he's been reassigned.
So I think,
which country did he go to?
So he went to EU. No.
He's been. I don't know where he's been reassigned.
But he's left. You're right.
Right now, I think we just have a charge d'affaires who's in charge. So we don't have an ambassador.
We have a Jin Kamau.
Now, back to what Mika said. This guy who's coming is the one who is supposed to convince let's say the Kamala Harris White House, or God forbid the Trump White House, that these deals that we signed up here
are very good for you.
This is a guy, no diplomatic experience, no geopolitical experience. He was unable to survive the panel, the vetting panel that had Kamkunji MP, Yusuf Hassan, who was really grilling them to the core. So I don't know how they'll go sit across, the table with State Department officials on the other side, with White House officials on the other side. Those guys are gonna crucify them.
In effect,
He's gonna get crucified.
In effect, Ali has put a nail on our coffin to have the guy come here to talk to us about diplomacy and Kenya and embassy and everything.
No, he doesn't. These people.
I mean,
I don't think
Let me tell
Ali
you-
wants that guy to
Let
go.
me tell you, these people. This is the problem that's happening in Kenya.
Yeah.
This is a problem that's happening in Kenya. This guy, his experience, he's been a speaker in some county in Rift Valley, Bomet County.
What's his name, by the way?
He's, I think,
Omosh,
David
who?
Lagat, something like that.
The namesake.
He's part of President Ruto'S tribe, which is what's happening, especially diplomatic appointments. This is where political failures are appointed. This is where tribesmen are appointed. This is where girlfriends and boyfriends are appointed. This is where children are appointed. Remember, President Ruto'S daughter was in Poland as a charge d'affaires, and right now she's a director somewhere, some defense department or something.
This is the
President
Minister
Ruto's-
of Defense.
Yes, look at that, and this is the problem that's happening in Kenya, whereby you have all these unqualified people in these spaces, and then when they're now negotiating on behalf of Kenya, we end up getting breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
my friend. We're not getting even breadcrumbs.
We end up getting
shafted
breadcrumbs,
proper.
and we are giving up, we're giving up so much, which is why
we are giving up our children's future.
I strongly believe there's something that these guys have on Ruto, because the way he lined up 100% without even hedging his bets is just so spectacular. So those are things that we're gonna see.
Yes,
Couple of
His
comments.
name
Couple of
is,
comments coming.
David
Lagat, David
Kerich.
Kiplagat. Okay, yeah. So part of the family. Now, Kenyan Jewish says, Ali, conspiracy theories are out of character for you. Conspiracy wachia Omosh. And then, let me see. Kenyan Jewish is also still putting Annette, on the fire. I gave you the link to ICE data straight from the horse's mouth. You can even visualize the data. Kenyans are not even a blip on the radar. Awar is calling my name Ali. I don't know. Maybe I said something that is something. But anyway, Awar, tell us about that. And then Kenju says, we trust but verify stats and fact check on this show. No jokes. The only way we let it slide is if you let us know it's a conspiracy theory. Okay. And then Awar says, Karanja will give us the stats. Might be Maryland, etc. Bye-bye. Washeke says his only experience is running a gas station. Now, the one who had experience running a gas station is the ambassador to
be who was to go to DRC.
Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah.
That was his only experience. And unfortunately, these are videos that are available on YouTube. You can go check, and these people are being vetted. And unfortunately, these appointments are being pushed because members of parliament have already been bribed, as you saw with the finance bill. So they have no choice. You have to push these people. You're running a gas station, and now you're going to DR Congo. DR Congo is now part of the East African community. There are so many trade deals that are going to happen, and you're sending someone who's run a gas station. But anyway, I digress. And then Esther Molusa says Big Ted is not a career diplomat. Very true. Kenyan Jui says, or she can apologize before the end of the... Hey, Kenyan Jui, we have options on this show.
Kenyan
And then,
Jui threatens too many people.
Winnie Odinga and Kalonzo San in Yala. Very true. These things, these things are the ones that hopefully they will come to an end. Of politicians giving their children positions, very critical positions, where they're supposed to be negotiating on behalf of Kenya. And then Ulrika Bernard says this is the year of the K.
But
Williams.
that's how Mudavadi got into office.
Kendrick Lamar, Kamala Harris, and now Kawangware. Let's go. Sorry, say that again.
That's how Mudavadi got into office.
Yes, the father was a minister, Moses Mudavadi,
And it's
and he's been in office since then.
Since 19 Katie down.
It was since 19.
No,
it was the late 80s.
the day that people voted on politics, kalitujwa ilibidi karudishwe na kina Raila.
No,
Akaranga limtoa.
yeah, no, but what I'm trying to say, Mika, is that is how he got it.
That's
Because
how he
it
got
was
his
that-
starting
that-
point.
that
Yeah,
torch was
Nipewa.
passed.
He
Yes.
was given.
Yeah,
He
correct.
inherited his.
Yes.
He
Yes.
Yeah.
inherited his political thing. That's why he always sells to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
Akishiba yuko sawa.
And then our says also Kajwang, although Kajwang is doing a good job, but he's also there courtesy of the brother.
His
The
brother.
brother used to be a member of parliament.
Yes, they felt way for him, but he was elected after that.
He was elected, yes. Fair
Right.
enough. To me, if you're elected, fair enough.
And since
Yeah.
he has continued to be elected, and what Mika was saying is that when this chap couldn't master, the people voted him out.
No, that's true.
He was brought back because of a, caproxy
He was brought back because he was the Pentagon. He was put in the Pentagon.
yeah.
ODM Pentagon.
Yeah.
Ile burudisha kwa siasa.
Okay.
Otherwise he was gone.
Yeah, so now as we're getting close to wrap up, we're shortly going to be talking about the question of whether the successes of the Gen Z movement was hijacked by Raila Odinga and the ODM faction in the Azimio coalition. Want you to stay tuned for that. Of course, our lines are still open, 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Feel free to call in. Now, we have a new handshake government in Kenya. The ODM members have been nominated by President Ruto into what he had called a dissolved cabinet, but he returned more than half of the people he had dissolved. He undissolved them. So, Omosh, maybe let me get started with you. Do you think this movement has been defeated?
The Gen Z movement?
Yes, by this new incest relationship between Raila.
Incest?
Yes,
Yes.
that's an incestuous relationship between Raila
Just go
and
in,
Ngoja, between Raila and Ruto. And I call it incestuous because
Let me hear your defense.
because
I want to hear where the
Because
incest is coming in.
the incest
Maybe
is
it's
coming
you that
in.
understand words.
the incest is coming in because they've been brothers in politics. The
Okay.
incest is coming in because there are 60 lives lost.
Oh, okay. So what does incest mean in this situation?
So this situation, like Raila, who
Which you never think.
everybody knows I have supported Raila for a very long time. And this is very difficult. It's a very difficult moment for a lot of us.
For you?
And no, it's not only me. All these Azimio ODM groups, and I can hear what people are saying.
Kumenyamaza siku hizi,
This
by
is
the way, watu
this is a very difficult moment
Omosh hajapata
because
memo.
60 people were killed
Yes.
by the government.
Yes.
And these protests were pushed by Kenyan Gen Zs.
Okay.
Raila was not part of this mandamano.
Okay.
At least in previous handshakes, he was part of what resulted in those handshakes. So this right here was a manufactured handshake. There was something else that was going
Okay, but
on.
why is it being called a handshake?
It's
because it's a handshake.
because it is a
I
handshake.
don't see it that way.
Okay, talk to us. Tell us.
Omosh,
Ngoja, Mika, let's give
I
Omosh.
was asked the question.
Let's give Omosh a chance to speak, because this is a moment in history where I think we have to be very honest with people that we've supported in the past, because even with Ruto, a lot of the people in this Gen Z movement are people who voted for him. There are people who supported him, but right now,
not a lot of the Gen Zs
no,
voted for him.
quite a number of them.
Zero.
Quite a number of
actually
people.
quite a lot of them voted for
Omosh,
him.
let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
They didn't vote.
Remember, even the people we hosted on this show, I don't think you were here the day when we were hosting them. Yeah, these are people who voted for
Hold
him.
up, Omosh,
These are
what do you
people who
guys
voted
keep
for
saying
him.
they didn't vote in Kama, the
Okay.
Anyway, let's give Omosh a chance. Let's give Omosh a chance to
Firing squad.
yeah.
Kwani mumekuja hapa kuniletea conspiracy
Utajua
theory?
ujui.
Useless nyinyi wote. Okay, so for me, I don't look at it as a handshake.
Okay, talk to us.
Okay, because
How do you see it?
what transpired or what occurred prior to this so-called government of what did they call it?
Government of National Unity.
This so-called government of national unity. I still don't look at it as a government of national unity. I see that there's 4 positions that were given to ODM people out of 23. I don't call that a government of national unity.
That's
That's
what they've called it.
from my perspective. I'm just looking at sheer numbers. The numbers don't lie. There's no national unity there, if you ask me.
Okay.
And then if we look at the other groups, like let's say the other parties that either say are part of the Azimio coalition,
Yes.
or the other say parties that had people who actually made some sort of what's the right word? Other parties that have quite a number of people in parliament that are not UDA. Those guys were not included in this.
Like Wiper.
Again, Wiper refused.
Yeah, they refused.
From what we know, right?
And also NAC.
NAC refused from what we know. And what's Nani's party? What's this guy's name? Eugene.
DAP Kenya. DAPK.
There's nobody from there, right? But again, the three principals said them they don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Right? So from my perspective, when I'm looking at it, 4 out of 23 is not a government of national unity. The problem I see here, for me, looking in from the outside, is that these 4 positions were given. There had been rumors saying that Raila was going to get CG 7 positions, or there's going to be 7 positions offered, and there were names that were floated, including CG Winnie, including I don't know who. There were all sorts of different names that were floated. One name that had been floated consistently and was in this was Joho, and I think Mbadi.
No, Joho. The names that were the names that were all appointed were fronted from the word go. Okay. And if you've realized, of the 4 that were appointed, is where the next flag bearer of that party is coming from. So basically, he took his 4 principles and gave them cabinet position.
Now, when you say that party, you mean ODM?
ODM, yes.
Okay, sawa.
Because the next flag bearer of ODM is going to be between those 4 people. Those are the names that are
and on that I can agree with you. I can actually agree with you on that.
So that is of the 4 is where that party has been looking to pull out one of their next presidential candidates, right? And these are the people who they are perceived as having a lot of access, and these are Baba's people. You cannot even try to say yet he picked randomly.
Oh, no.
Ruto just decided one day.
No. You are totally right about that. That part you're totally right about.
These were positions that he reached out to Baba and told him, I have this, I'm going to give you this, and he's taking it. And then remember, he's getting his candidature for AU, which is coming with full government support. So that is what he's going for, right? And then also remember, the other positions which are supposed to go into reshuffling, which are going to be the principal secretaries.
Yeah.
And that is where we're going to see more appointments. So, a government of national unity or a government of national unity, it doesn't matter. What matters and what people are demonstrating about, he did not solve with his appointments in any way.
I agree with you.
And why people are mad at Baba is because you were told to stay out of the maandamano, you stayed out. But then you saw a vacuum that came in. And this guy also saw a vacuum that was there. And together they negotiated a way of how they're going to do things while they're weakening his VP, who was making noise about Murima and because the VP was making him uncomfortable. Remember, if the VP could shake the MPs that are aligned to him, and those MPs would vote with opposition, he would not be able to rule the country as he wants to rule the country. And that is why he went to cover himself with ODM, so that even if the VP went wrong with his people, he has numbers from ODM to cover. So here, Omoj, there is no way. There is absolutely no way we can clean up Raila, because Raila knows.
I didn't say I was cleaning up anything. But let's you didn't even give me a chance to finish.
I'm not saying you say
you didn't give me a chance to finish. You jumped in on my pot.
Yeah,
I was cooking.
I'm finishing up. There is no way here how Raila can be sanitized in any way, because he has given Ruto some wind for him to do what he wants to do, and that is why he has been so arrogant in bringing back his people and going with it. Now, the good thing, or what this makes it gives the people of Kenya a clear view of who's their enemy and who they need to go and work against. And clearly here it shows that the whole political class is not for them. So it's up to the people as they continue pushing the government and continue do I think it's such a big deal? Yes. Do I think it stops it? No. It just gives people a strategy and something to turn around and come back with. Clear, change your sights, let's work again.
Okay. Aya, Omosh. Let's let Omosh give his side.
Again, like I said, I don't see national unity in this. Raila didn't go knocking on anybody's door. This thing was brought to him. He has played this game politically the way he has perceived it to see it to be played. Now, the problem that I see with our Kenya, unfortunately, is we are very short-minded in terms of our memory and how things occur. In 2023, when there was a Finance Act, maandamanos, and people were sitting in bomas and having irreducible minimums, and all these conditions were being put, and they agreed, and the report was handed to Gava sat on it and decided to do nothing with it. Then strategically, when Gen Zs start maandamanos, the report now comes out, and IBC restructuring and reconstitution is now issue. Let's sign and let's do a PR thing and have all the principles of Azimio stand up and hold that thing up and take a picture to show that we are together, right? And right after that, everybody's like, Kapana, don't sell us out. Stay out of this. And Raila backed off. This guy comes to him and says, hey, I have positions. And I don't know if you guys remember in 2022, when this guy went in and after
but Omosh didn't back off.
Mika, wacha Omosh amalize. Wacha Omosh amalize and then you'll respond. Aya, Omosh.
So, before I was rudely interrupted, in 2022, when there was the court hearing and the judges came back and said, okay, this guy is the one who's entering into office and everything looks good and there was no foul play, blah, blah, blah. The one thing that came out of Ruto's mouth, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, was that I'm here to unite the country. Let's unite as one country and we need to have an official office of opposition. Was that said by him?
No, yes, that was said.
And so, if we're to go by what was said in 2022 and what's happening now, where is the problem?
So here's the problem.
Okay, that's hold on. I'm not done. And that's just me looking at it from my perspective. Again, this is just me and my perspective and how I'm looking at it. I don't think Raila sold people out. I think the problem that we have with all these political bodies and all these things is they have backroom deals that they do. And all of these things are put out in MOUs, and we, the people who are the voters who bring them in and they're supposed to answer to us, we don't know what these things are until one day somebody leaks these things out. So we don't know what's going on or what happened, even with that Bomas agreement. Nobody knows. We've just been told, oh, there's a report. This is what we think was in there, but no one has seen it. Have you guys seen it?
The NADCO report is out. The NADCO report is out. If you're referring
to the
NADCO
out.
Okay, no. Yeah. Mimi mwenyewe ndio, because again, like ndio nasema, these are my thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? So if the NADCO report is out and it had not been put into play, what was the reason why it had not been put into play? And the thing came out before December.
The reason why it was not put into play, Omosh, is because at the end of the day, it's the sitting government that has to put it into play.
Sawa.
They have to
so this was a game, right?
They have to take it to parliament where it was going to be voted for. They could put into play.
So it was a game, right?
So they had that they control the numbers, and that is why, again, why I'm saying Raila was opportunistic and he sold out people, because they controlled the numbers, they had everything. They were not even trying to say or push them. They were just complaining every day, implement the NADCO report, right? When Raila came out the first time, hiyo siku ya kwanza tukashangatia amekuja amepiga picha ameinua NADCO report anasema nini. It was like, we are pushing them to do this and this and this. Remember, that watu kamuingilia. What did he do? They went to a matanga. In that matanga, everybody told him very loudly, do not, and we repeat, do not do anything. What did he do again the next Monday? Came out with a statement about how he's still pushing for dialogue. I'm insisting on this, and this. And that's what he's been trying to say. He has never come and said anything in any way that he's no. He will just but at the end of the day, he never stands by his word. And it's been showed here. So
when you say he never stands by his word, Mika,
he has never stood by.
I don't know
his
what
word.
I don't know what word we're talking about.
Okay,
let's deal with what we are dealing with now, right?
Let's talk about the current situation right now.
Okay.
In his word was that there is no way he's forming any government with Ruto.
Okay.
Number two, there is no way he's supporting Ruto. And number three, he said he's gonna sit it out. He didn't sit it out. He joined it.
So on
he
this
joined
one,
the government by nominating 4 of his principals to join the government that he is. So that means he's working with the government. Because if, as the de facto party leader of ODM, he can clearly say, kick these ninjas out. We're not doing this. He hasn't done that.
So let me.
You see the way Babu
say
has said he's not in support. Baba can say that, and then we can and he can say that and kick out those people from ODM. Then we can know. But him trying to sell us, at CG, I'm pushing for dialogue, CG for all those who have been arrested to be released. CG to be released. Even if you see his talking points of what he's asking, is not in conjunction with what the people are asking for when they're going to negotiate. I am a Baba fan, but I'll be first to admit and say here he sold out.
Now,
Now the reason he did this, we know is why.
I'm not with you.
Okay, Sawa.
I'm not with you on that one.
Okay, we can agree to disagree on this.
And Baba even wrote a letter, supposedly.
We can agree to disagree on this.
Which talks a lot of nothing.
But
Ngojeni agree with it.
Ngojeni, we can agree to disagree on this, but what we can agree on is that there was a protest that was started, which was not done by the political class.
Correct.
It was the young people in Kenya.
Correct.
They were fighting against a tyrannical finance bill, a toxic finance bill, which they successfully were able to make the president to not sign to it. Unfortunately, in the process, more than 60 people have been killed. There's been multiple hundreds of abductions. There are people who are still missing. So there's been a lot of suffering associated with this movement. The political class was not involved. Baba was specifically told to completely stay out of this. President Ruto was cornered. For the first time since getting into office, he spent more than 3 weeks in Kenya. And that's a very weird stat. I don't know that Kenyan Drew will be looking that up right now. But he was never spending more than 3 or 4 weeks in Kenya before going somewhere. This is the first time, this is the longest that he stayed in Kenya since he became president. I think he's done 60 something, if it's not 67, 68 trips in less than 2 years, even for a frequent flyer. That is just astonishing. That's a lot. So this guy, he had been completely cornered. Now, the one thing, the one thing that Baba could have done to completely shut him out, because people wanted Ruto out. If now Baba would have joined, because he did not even join the Mandamanos, he was told to stay out. But if he would have joined that chorus, and Ruto would have been completely naked. So the only reason why Ruto reached out to Baba is because he knew once they engage in this incestuous sexual intercourse, then they will have control of parliament. They will have full control of parliament. Now, once you have full control of parliament, you cannot, there's certain things that you'll be able to do. What was supposed to be the next step? Constitute IEBC.
Correct.
Now, with Baba, with his men and some of these are personal friends. Ali Hassan Joho is a personal friend, and I'll be the first one to tell him that umetuangusha. Because at this point, it's one thing.
He's all our personal friend, boss.
Yeah, he's our personal friend. So it's one thing, when if it's just a government appointment you are looking for, if this was in other circumstances, but here we have a situation where, this movement has lost more than 60 lives. And then now here you
Correct.
come and insert yourselves, and you come and say, oh, like now there's national unity, and then you call it national unity, and then now you start going back on top of cars to start reasserting your campaigns for 2027, because I think this is kind of like they use this as an opportunity to try to create a formation for election 2027. Now, the one unique thing about this handshake, this is the earliest handshake in the history of handshakes. Remember, Moi's handshake was towards Moi's, when Moi was going towards out of office. Uhuru's handshake was in the second term. Kibaki's handshake, it was after 5 years, it was in the second term. Ruto's handshake, he's not even been in office for 2 years. So here's the other problem. We have like a serious economic problem, and Ruto is again looking at it as a political problem, and he's gotten, like a political solution that has temporarily solved it, but this problem is not going to go away, unfortunately.
No, it's not. You and I agree.
Yeah, it's not going to go away.
It is not going away.
So we have more than 3 years to go. It's not going to go away. We are going to have another finance bill. In fact, even finance bill.
I don't know if Ruto's going to be able to garner another 2 years.
We're going far. So the next issue.
How will you know it's going to get another 2 years?
Ngoja kidogo, Mika, ngoja tumalize. You'll get your chance to speak. You see, like the next step right now is for Baba, or not Baba, is for Parliament to enact the necessary laws to reconstitute IEBC.
Yes.
So that's going to be the next source of friction, and this is going to continue, because now once this IEBC is formed, then we get what you call a recall election, because people are asking for members of parliament to be recalled. And right now, because of this incestuous relationship between Ruto and Raila, they will not want their members of parliament to be recalled, because if we go to recall, once IBC has been reconstituted, registration has been done, most of these members of parliament are gonna be going home if they risk doing a recall.
Correct.
So I think that's the other goal, is to try and block this recall process, because initially was to recall those members of parliament who voted no. Yes for the yes for the finance bill.
Yeah.
But now we have all these other, like even people who've not been appointed, like Kaluma, they are joining in that threesome. Like like you've not even been appointed to cabinet, but then they're jumping on it. We have 60 lives that have been lost. We have dozens of parents who don't know where their children are. They don't know whether they're dead or alive. We have bodies being found in quarries.
Correct.
So it gets to a point when we have to be honest. On this one, Raila, you got it wrong. Just come back, apologize, and I don't even know if an apology will work right now. But on this one, and this is very difficult for me personally.
I think we need transparency.
Yeah, it's very difficult for me personally.
That's for me. We need transparency. And to me, here's the thing. And I feel and I hear your pain. Where in the point of these 4 people who have been appointed, if like and I agree with a little bit of what Mika is saying, where basically where it's Raila would come out and say, okay, guys, here is why we've done A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and this is where we're headed with it, and we've decided we're going to fight this monster from inside. Quote unquote. I think that is easier than even coming out and giving an apology for the people who are feeling that they have been now abandoned and left out. And because everybody now is saying, okay, you know what? Fine, we've had this happen with the Gen Zs, but then now we're going back to all the things that you have done before, where lives have been lost, people have been so what was all of that for? Why did we go through all of that, right? So to me, I think, hold on, Mika, I think for me, if he were to come out and be, I would say, transparent and honest and say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because the letter, even though he did push out the letter, in fact, I'm even questioning whether it's his letter, but if he hasn't come out and said it's not his, then it's his. Right? So,
but Omosh,
go ahead, Mika.
Omoshme, you're saying about transparency, right? I'll take you back to a week ago, where again he himself said this, right? He said that you guys are pushing for Ruto to go. If Ruto goes, it means Gachagua is the one who comes in. Do you want to say that Gachagua is a better person? Like that was a statement he should not have made, right? And he said that the reason why, and again he retaliated why he's pushing for dialogue, and in his dialogue, why he gave us his 4 points that he likes giving us every time. So for me, I'm like, you are somebody who understands the constitution. You helped in building this constitution, right? There's so many things that Raila has done for the country, we cannot forget about that.
Correct.
Right? So you helped with the writing of this constitution. You understand this constitution. You clearly know quite well if there's a vote of no confidence, it's both of them, it's not one. That's how the constitution says. Number two, you know that there's not going to be a vacuum of power. We have a speaker and we have an attorney general. They're the two who are going to run the country, and as per the constitution, between 60 and 90 days, they have to hold another election. So there was never going to be any vacuum of power. So telling the people that say that the Gachagua, the military who are coming in, you're using scare tactics again. And you know you control a huge following in the country of people that follow you and listen to you. You know pretty well that the reason why you're being given all these goodies that you're being given right now is so that you have people who will be part of, because this is a Gen Z demonstration, but it got to a point where other people have joined in, right? And then even when it started, it's why do you think police go to attack people in the estates? Right? Why do they go to attack people? So that watu wasifike kwa towns, because wanajua, and they know that this guy also has following in major parts of the country or major parts of the estate, who akisema hivi ata reduce numbers zote wenye wanakuja kwa streets. He can be used as a pacifier. They know and then pia politicians wake walikuwa wanapiga kelele kwa social media wamenyamaza, bloggers wake wamenyamaza, wameanza kupush nini. He knows he's being used to clean the bad image that Ruto has right now. So
okay,
for me, it doesn't matter what clarity that you need from Raila Manini. Raila hapa, and it's painful to say this because this is somebody that I've looked up. This is somebody, and then we have friends in this party. We have people who we talk to in this party, and it's like,
okay.
Unajua moshi ni
sawa
msoa Ruto sahi. Useme una support Ruto na push Ruto sahi. Unajua hata tunashindwa kukupiga, tunakupenda lakini hatuwezi kukupiga. Tunataka kukupiga. Hatujui tufanye nini na wewe.
Okay, sawa.
This is what I want to do. Before we wrap up, let me see if this is going to play. Hold on. Let me see if this is going to play. Hold on. Oh, this.
Usitoke, don't.
Hold on.
Agombo, this is a message to you. Usitoke, don't come. Agombo, please stay at home. We saw your efforts, okay? We saw everything that you did for Kenya. Now let us. We miss you, but Agombo, please don't even come outside. Don't come outside. Tunatoka on your behalf, okay?
Now, this was June 18th.
This was before even the June 25th, where people started getting killed.
Yes.
This was the first demonstration.
This was the first demo, yeah.
Gombo's response was, "I'm very proud of my children."
Yeah. Yeah. Let me go through some comments quick.
Yes.
And then we're gonna wrap up. And then I just want Annette to have a word or two on how, now the Kenyans who are raised here, who are perceiving this conflict, because I think it's very important to get that other perspective. So comments that were coming here, I can see what was saying. Some of the Gen Z told Rao to chill, sit and watch your revolutionary legacy work. And then Ulrika Bernard says, if Raila wanted to help move the needle forward, he would have. They are all in bed together. The handshake was was to shut him up. And then Kenju says, Omosh, what are semantics? A rose by any other name still smells like a government of national unity. And then Washeke says, Omosh is still in denial about Baba. And then hapa Steven JJ anasema Raila huwa mweupe kama pamba, lakini hapa amechafua. wamejiwekea target, politicians wamejiwekea big bullseye. Hii wa Kenya hawatasahau. Gen Z and millennials are the biggest voting bloc. Wachukue kura na wapige kura sawa sawa, finito. And then Ulrika Bernard says, please mobilize for Kamala. We need a change, and our change is here. Please share. We raised 2 million in 2 hours, and it was white women. And guess who really started this? Black women. We have work to do. If you're an immigrant, if you're a woman, if you're a cat lady, this change affects not only us, but even those in Kenya. And then I can see here we're saying, no, this is Gerard Olich. How are we still talking about IBC being enacted? And with the handshake, the handshake has...
And this handshake
yeah. Okay.
will and has diluted the official opposition
diluted the official opposition. And then hapa Kenyanjui anasema, Ali, you're really pushing the hyperbole today at the incestuous sexual intercourse threesome guy baba. The show is PG. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, sorry if there was any kids, but yeah, this is where that's where, and I hope this message gets to them. They need to understand. I think Baba needs to know that the ground is burning. Yeah, Baba needs to understand that.
I think he has heard it loud and clear. If he didn't
No,
hear,
he hasn't.
If he didn't hear Mika, I think he has heard it loud and
No,
clear.
he hasn't, because he should have heard that before. But anyway, wahenga walinena kilicho na mwanzo.
But we give Annette a chance
No,
to
Annette
just give.
needs
Oh,
to
yes,
give
yes,
us
by the way, yes.
Yeah.
her 16 cents.
Yeah.
Unataka kurap it up,
Where, relax. Where? Mika, hold on. Go ahead, Annette.
First, let me say, let me rephrase my previous statement. I can't exactly remember how I stated it, but when it comes to detention centers, the people who spend the most amount of time in detention tend to be Black individuals. And so, excuse me, if you take out the Hispanic portion of it, because of course the Black people from the from the Central America and from South America, which does by and large constitute the largest number of people who are coming in through that system. So I'm not disregarding that. Those who stay in the detention centers are Black. So, excuse me, I was not able to find the statistic. The organization that I referred to has shifted their focus on the treatment of those who are currently detained. So I would have gladly shared. There was a graphic about it and the breakdown of the countries removing the Hispanic numbers, which is
What year
significant.
was that? Do you remember?
I believe it was definitely it was 10 years ago. I believe it was like 2015.
Okay.
Yeah. So, additionally, thank you for bearing with me. Sunday came, and then I got sick. It was like my body was in overload. The emotional ups and downs, the president.
It was you turning off your phone.
I turned off my phone. I was so
That's
stressed.
why you are sick. You are sick because you turned your phone off.
My body has, been trying to recover, and I think it's really important for us to be mindful of our mental health. This has been very stressful.
Yeah, it's been very stressful. Yeah,
it's been very stressful.
Yeah, these days Ali is mean to me, and he never used to be mean.
Some of these things will cause those type of reactions. Be nice to your friends, be nice to your kids.
Mika shut me out.
Some of us are having intergenerational conversations that were not there before. And so I think it's really important for us to, take a beat and realize that we can sit and be anxious about all of these little details. And it's not going to do you well. At the end of the day, the most important thing for you to do is to take care of yourself and make sure that you are an able-bodied individual, so that when we go to the polls, you can do so and be well when you're doing so. That's really big. It's been rough. And so when it comes to the elections here stateside, when it comes to the diplomatic implications, those of us who are here in the U.S. are going to be focused on U.S. interests, and so the campaign is going to focus around that. But this is a really good time to put pressure. All of Congress needs to win their race in November. And so when there are issues that are priorities, you know, whether it's conflicts that are going on around the world, whether it's, you know, the Project 2025 and what that means for us as individuals, taxes, inflation, job opportunities, so on and so forth, the infrastructure bill, like, this is the time to do it. And also look up your judges. You want to see who is running to be a judge because they may end up on the Supreme Court. You know, like, this is where it starts. Think about that. And so, and then the last thing I would say is, do you really want, like, Trump is now the oldest person
to ever run.
Okay, he's the oldest person to ever run. Do we really feel comfortable with J.D. Vance becoming a de facto president if something were to happen to this man's health, if he were to win? You know, I think that's something that
Ponder about.
to ponder about.
So what would you suggest for
I would suggest vote for a
those
ticket.
of us who might be on the Kamala side of things? What do we need? What do we need to do?
What we need to do is we need to vote. We need to have our friends and family register to vote. If you don't know how to do it, you can Google it. Each state has a different process, but they all have a portal that you can go to and figure out how to vote. The deadline for November is coming up soon. I think it's like it might be in October, but you would have to check in your state, in your jurisdiction.
What's for Maryland?
What that means. I actually had that up. It was in October for Maryland. Let me not quote the wrong thing. I don't want to be misquote. I don't want to misquote twice. But something else that is interesting to point out as well is that, you know, Trump loves to conflate how he loves to talk about how loved he is and how well he's doing and how great everything is and how big the turnout was for his inauguration and all of that, which is simply untrue. But one thing that I will say is that Trump has not won the popular vote ever. Okay, so this is why Georgia is important when it comes to, like, the maneuvering. They are outmaneuvering us when it comes to getting votes thrown out, when it comes to qualifying votes, whatever it may be. Like, they're outmaneuvering. So in Florida, Trump won Florida by 113,000 votes, and in Miami.
Cubans.
In Miami, there's 379 black people who did not vote. And Trump won Michigan by 11,000 votes. In Detroit, there are 277,000 black people who did not vote.
So was the Miami 300 and something thousand? Is that what you meant?
379,000.
Oh, you said 319.
Oh, my bad.
You didn't say that.
379,000.
She just said 1,000.
Yeah.
In Miami,
Yes.
who did not vote?
Yes.
Jesus.
So that's
Who did
Miami.
not register or
No,
did
they
not?
did
Did
not
not. They were
vote
registered,
because
but
they
did
would
not
have to
vote.
have
So
known
for
that
you to
they are
have this
registered.
number,
You had to have been registered.
You have to have been registered.
They just noticed that these guys did not vote,
Did not
and
vote.
they know what the
Yeah.
demographic is.
So then in
They're
Pennsylvania,
probably Haitians.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania,
No, the
Trump
Haitians
won
were voting for him.
by
Of course, that's what I'm saying.
by
yeah.
44,000. So in Pennsylvania, Trump won by 44,000 votes, and in Philadelphia, 238,000
Did not
black
vote.
people did not vote.
Is Baltimore
They-
there? in
No,
that
this was
stat?
just specifically.
This is
Oh,
battleground
they're the
states.
battles of
Battleground.
understood.
Yes, this
Understood.
was a post that was put by young voters. And so one thing that I will say about this is, even locally, if you live in East Baltimore County, there is a district, you know, Essex, Middle River. That area has a lot of Kenyans, but in general, there's a black population there.
You mean one Mike's neighbors?
Okay.
Her neighbors
and maybe. So in that area, that there is a large black population that did not come out to vote the last election. And these numbers I get from the Maryland from the Maryland government. They actually put it out on the Board of Elections, so I can see some of these numbers and these trends. And so the thing is, some people have said that the vote does not count or it doesn't matter. But
BS.
these numbers are telling me that there is a
They matter
significant
because had they voted, that would have been the.
that it would have been a
that's
wrap
what
and it would have been
yes.
But does that-
uncontestable.
but
And
does that not
and some of those
feed-
Kenyans are voting Trump.
'Cause
Are voting in Baltimore.
And that is your right. I will say though, I
am
don't
biased.
I don't ever want to be asked by a future generation why I allowed certain people to have power to take away the rights or to make life more difficult for my lineage. That's not something I'm comfortable doing.
Wow. Wahenga.
Wahenga walinena kilicho na mwanzo hakina budi kuwa na mwisho. Meli imetia nanga. We are about to wrap this puppy up. Mika, chikade, tugende.
Hii papi siku moja uilale tu bila kurapiwa. Anyway.
Wewe, Mika, wewe.
Yeah, Uno, how do we take a lost anyway? All in all, I want to say thank you to everybody who's showed up today. Thank you, Annette, for gracing the show. Thank you to our wapenzi wachangiaji for coming up. And I don't know what more we can say. We all know the importance of this election. Repeat it. You have no rights trying to vote for the other guy. But even those Kenyans who claim Republican, anyway, all in all, he's not going to save you in anything. Shida zako zitakushika tu. Save yourself. As I say every day, Google Project 2025. Just look at it. If that's not enough, he's currently speaking right now. He's spoken some things. One of the things was what? He's telling people vote and you'll never vote again. I'm going to fix it. Right? Codes of what? You don't know. All in all, you have a right to stay on the right side of it. You have a not a right.
A duty.
You have the chance to stay on the right side of history right now. Take that chance. As Annette said, you don't want to answer to another generation why you let certain things happen.
Wow.
And with that, I want to wish everybody a nice weekend.
Hey.
Don't root and drive. A DUI is expensive than an Uber ride. Be blessed.
Thank you, Mikasi. Thanks to Miss Annette for gracing us with your presence as usual. You really know how to bring up the political in us that we don't think is there politically for us domestically here in this our US of A. And I would tell my fellow, I would say diasporans, immigrants here in the US, it's an election year. If you're not registered to vote and you're eligible to vote, please, please, please run. Don't crawl, run. Go get that voter's card, register, and go vote. It doesn't matter to me which way you vote as long as you vote. However, I would prefer you vote the Democratic way because it's our livelihood that is at stake. There's just no other way of putting it. We saw it in the first 45, in his first run at it, and it was not funny. I think it was day 3, or was it day 2? Immigrants, those executive things were being signed left, right, and center, and folks literally flying back into the airport from vacation, coming back to jobs, was stopped and turned around and told you're no longer welcome to America, a place they had called home for probably over 15, 20 years. And maybe the only reason they had not switched citizenship is because they were not able to have dual citizenships in their countries. And so, and that is an actual real issue for a lot of folks who would want to carry a passport of the US but choose not to because they still want to be affiliated with home or have a connection to where they come from. But their home is here. Your home is here now, and you need to take care of the local politics. So please register to vote. Go ahead, take a look at the candidates, see what's happening, and this is crucial for us as immigrants, and it can't be said enough. Maybe we're gonna continue to keep hitting this nail every show and letting you guys know, giving you links, telling you where you need to go, get you mobilized, and maybe even do a drive to get Kenyans registered. Those who are anybody who you know who is not registered, we need to get folks to be registered to vote so that on that day you can be counted and you will vote. And in Maryland, we have early voting. You can go ahead and do that. And there's so many things. And we even have, if you're in PG right now, there's a special election that's ongoing. You know, they had the mail-in ballots came in. I got mine. So there's just stay on point, stay on track, and make sure that you are being counted with this vote, like Mika has said. It's very, very, very important. If there's a time that it's important, now is the time. Have a good week. Thank you to our listeners as usual. We will see you guys next week. Nababa Jakosea. Later. Annette? No? Do we want Annette to say something?
Yeah, Annette,
Your parting shot.
give us your parting shot, and then we'll wrap it up.
And
Moshi must go.
wow, Mika.
So thank you guys so much for having me here again. I am humbled. I'm honored to have you here. I mean, to be welcomed here. Thank you so much. I would just say that if you are in the Maryland area, just to piggyback on what was said previously, if you want to do some sort of voter registration at your event or at your church or anything like that, reach out to me. I'm on Instagram. My handle is classy_Annette, spelled ANNETTE, and we can get that put together. And again, doesn't matter how you vote. Whenever voter registration is happening, it is not a partisan issue. It is a matter of helping citizens have access to their right to vote. Otherwise, you guys have a blessed night.
All right. Thank you so much, Annette. This was an amazing show. And we hope we're going to see you again and again before the election, because this is going to be a very critical period between now and November. What date is the election? Is it November the 7th?
The 5th.
The 5th. Oh, okay.
I happen to know because that's a very special day for me. So please, for the sake of my...
Is it your birthday?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
Please do me a favor, my friends.
Wow. Okay.
And
okay.
please don't make that day depressing.
Okay. So birthday gift. So
Yes.
birthday gift. And hopefully, I mean, nowadays, because of early voting, they typically do not call on the night of the election like it used to be before. I mean, unless it's a very clear win. But we'll wait to see what's going to happen. It's going to be very critical moments between now and in November. My community, the Muslim people, we are still waiting to hear what Kamala will say about Gaza. You know, like I strongly believe she has the right frame of mind, and she'll say the right things because it's something that's very sensitive to us. But I think the move to switch from Biden to Kamala, I had my doubts about it, but it looks so far, it looks like it's working okay. Kenyanjui is telling you, Annette, that I could listen to you all night. I am glad you are the last human I get to listen to tonight. That's Kenyanjui. Yeah, na kwa yeyote mwingine ambaye anataka kunipigia simu, nambari yangu bado ni ile ile 1-800 mteule, na operator akishika simu mwambie unataka kusema na mjukuu, na akikuuliza ni mjukuu yupi, mkumbushe ni mjukuu yule yule wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Kwaherini.
Aiden, Daddy loves you. Jerry, Daddy loves you. Nemo, Daddy loves you. Until next week, be blessed. Annette, just say one more thing. Good night, Kenyanjui. Just say that.
Good night, Kenyanjui.
It took some time. I tried to fight, but got pushed to the side.